Ugh. I always go, right, what do I say before I begin? And I'm like, oh, I'm online. And I'm streaming. Hello, hello, everyone. Hello, hello. My name is Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. And as always, this is Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs. Welcome back. I've scheduled even more streams to do today because nobody's around. It's the bank holiday weekend here in the UK. And I was like, gosh, I really want to do something productive but also not too productive, so I've gone and just gone, hey, there's loads of RPGs that I need to read through for upcoming streams or just to get the sort of general know-how on how to do. So I just thought, just schedule some extra ones in. So this is the first of 3 streams we're doing today. I'm just going to turn down the music for me, it's a little bit loud. It's first of 3 streams we're going to do today. So this first one is even then a double bill. So we're going to be covering 4 different tabletop RPGs, which is exciting. I hope you're doing well, no matter where you are in the world watching this, whether you're watching it live or later on the VODs. Let's get started. I appreciate I haven't put in the first. I'm normally quite on it with the Nightbot commands, but I have not done it. But yes, so today we're going to look at a double feature. We're going to look at Spire, The City Must Fall, and we're going to look at Heart, which I believe the title is Heart, The City Beneath. Both of these games are by Rowan Rook and Descartes, and written by Grant Howitt, we all know who Grant Howitt is, and Chris Taylor. They're sort of partner in crime when it comes to all these sort of writings. And the reason I wanted to cover this is that Spire was one of the first RPGs I actually backed on Kickstarter really, really early on, and then I got the PDF. I never read it. And it is, I've heard it's one of the Shut Up and Sit Down have done their own review of it, saying it's what a really good evocative setting it is, saying how much they really enjoy the system, etc. And then on top of that, Heart is almost like connected to but separate kind of RPG related to the setting as well. And so from what I understand, Spire is essentially like a big sort of almost like a tower block, a fantasy tower block-esque type thing, where there's lots of different levels and so lots of places to create your own homebrew campaigns and stuff like that, with lots of lore around it, and the classes apparently are really, really interesting as well. And then the Heart is the stuff beneath the Spire, the city, almost like a dungeon crawl. So we're going to be looking at those today. Big caveat though, we're going to be looking at the quick starts for both of them, because the core books, both of them are like 200 pages long, and as much as I love doing streams like this, people only need a taster, right? And I think quick starts are a really great way to do it. Both of them are free if you go to the Rowan Rook and Descartes website, or if you want to go to Drive-Thru RPG as well. You can, I think it's pay what you want, sorry, not free. So do please check those out. Great, I'm going to then flip over to the other screen, where I can just show you a little bit more and what it looks like as well. Obviously, I'm a massive fan, I'll say this now, I'm a massive fan of Rowan Rook and Descartes, not sponsored by them or anything like that if they're all watching, but they are a UK-based tabletop RPG company. You've probably heard of Grant Howard, who have created sort of one-page one-shots, which you can get for it via his Patreon, but also Spire is obviously their main sort of book before it sort of exploded into like Heart, and then there's I think it's called The Hollows, which is coming out fairly soon as well, using the same sort of system, but it's also known for helping Die the RPG come out, one of my favourite RPGs of the last year coming out, working with Kieran Gillen as well. So it's always good to support local tabletop companies, and local, they're in Sheffield now, but they're always at every convention, and they're very, very popular both here and in the US. You might have heard of Honey Heist. It's sort of the one shot that sort of got everyone going, because it was used on places like Critical Role, which is pretty cool. And one thing I would love to say, is that Critical Role, they are very good for crediting who creates the one-shots, and where did they get it from, all that sort of thing, and giving a link to that. Not all big RPG actual play companies do that, and not to name names or anything like that, but I think it's so important to make sure you credit where you get your content from, where you're using one-shots, because usually the listeners are like, I really enjoy this game, where can I play it myself? And if you don't have a link to it in the description, or if you don't talk about it, at least in the episode, it feels very, very poor. So that's why I always am a big fan of crediting, both in the episode description, which you'll have hopefully below on this video, but also I'm just going to say it out loud, and hopefully the Nightbot stuff is working so you can go and check it out yourself. Yeah, and you can get the PDF, there's hard copies, all the good stuff as well. Let me go from Big Fiona cam, our favourite cam obviously, to excuse me, the game cam. So we're going to look at Spire first, because that's the one that came first, and obviously we'll find out when. In the last sort of 5 years, it's had its 5-year anniversary. So let me move lovely screen to one side. So Spire, the City Must Fall, that is the main core book. But if you want a source book, a strata, that's all the sort of lore and stuff on that on top as well. Should you want to look, you've got Silver Any for best art, which is good. I mean, cracking artwork. You can already sort of tell it's sort of very fantasy punk RPG, and so that's what it says. There's let me move it a little bit more so people can see it. Spire, the City Must Fall RPG, a fantasy punk RPG about rebellion, brutality, and oppression. What are you prepared to sacrifice to get what you deserved? Very cool. And also, I'm going to click on to this product because I want to check out the maps. We'll see it. You can see how incredibly detailed, like a detailed, rich map of Spire. This is where are we going to see like a nice big version? Oh, and there's an Underspire map as well. How cool. So yes, there's an Undercity in the Spire itself. Very, very detailed, very beautiful. I love this. I'm a massive fan of maps that I can put up and show to my players. Also, hopefully, once I move, I'll just get I've got a whole corner basically dedicated to maps. They're all rolled up stuff, and I just want to frame them and just put them all around the room and look incredibly cool whilst doing it. And yeah, so you can get a high-res digital print, which obviously will only cost roughly about £2, but then a glossy art print as well. Massive fan of that. So yeah, Rowan Rook and Descartes are very up on their merchandising there. They know how to they know how to appeal to me. And then you've got a couple of scenarios as well. Shadow Operations, there's one-shot books, some other ones that you can check out as well. Let's check out Blood and Dust. Choose an option, PDF or softcover, which is very good. Let's see PDF. So yeah, name your own price as well for that one, for the Dust and Cover one as well. Kevin Brown, hello Kevin Brown. I like how there are named places on the maps, but the details are left up to the players and GMs. Exciting, yeah. I'll say I'm very unfamiliar with this book, but I love maps that are so detailed like this and really evocative. I love the little, because this is the thing. So let me go back to the map. So as you can see on the left-hand side here, gosh, I wish I wouldn't do that. I'll be on this sort of left-hand side, you have what the Spire looks like on the outside, and then on the right-hand side, you have all the. There we go, a little bit better. As you can, you know what? Let me move everything across. There we go. So yeah, you can actually see. Obviously, it won't go in too much detail, but you can see where the different layers and how they are slightly different, which is so cool. Like you can see here, the sky docks sort of relate to that area there. I love it, like layers of a cake. Very, very cool. I'm just going to move down a little bit as well. I love that. And yeah, you got a little bit of sort of names and stuff there, and a little bit of floating there. Is that Feather Island it's called? So lots and lots of stuff for the GMs to wander about and create their own stuff as well. Lots of details as well. I love that. I wonder how big the art print is. Let me have a quick see if it does say an A2. Beautiful. And includes access to the high-res one as well. That's great. I love that. You know, when you're buying a hard cover or a soft cover, and they're like, oh, we'll throw in the PDF for free. That's great. It's such a great way to be sort of accessible as well. Fantastic. Let's have a quick look down if there's anything else we want to look at. So yeah, and as I said before, the quick start you can also get here. Oh, sorry, I've moved on quite a little bit, but I usually get mine through DriveThruRPG as well. And there's Black Magic, another source book, so several source books. Oh, 3 source books. Deep Spire, so this sort of Underspire, the Undercity stuff. 4. Oh, sorry, I get so excited. Let's have a quick look at what else there is. 5 Book of Masks, so that's probably going to be about the factions and stuff. Sin, another Spire source book. That's the most recent one, I think. Full-length source book on. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting it's not. I really need to make this smaller. Full-length source book on Spire, packed with new rules, evocative scenarios, and details on crime, order, and religious domains. Very cool. Very, very cool. Great. And also, yeah, if you want to get a bundle, you can do that as well. There's lots of different kinds of everything Spire, everything digital, all good stuff. So yeah, you can either go hard in or hard out. There is currently a sale on, there you go, on the Rowan Rook and Descartes website of the core books for Spire and Heart. So as I said, we're going to look at the 2 quick starts for Spire and Heart, so do check them out. But we're going to first start with Spire. Now, let me Whoop, take that. So, yes, this quick start, she says, trying to find it on her own screen. There we go. Let's zoom out a little bit. So, yeah, this quick start itself, Spire, is roughly about 40 pages. It sort of came out with the first Kickstarter for it as well. So, things might be changed in it, or we might not have the full rules in it. I just thought I'd say that. But I've not read it through, but we're going to look at it together. And I believe there are some pre-generated character sheets in this as well as a scenario, which is really cool. So roughly about 37 pages we've got on the PDF there, but it'll be, it's going to be interesting. I've got the book and it's sitting in my pile of to-play games. It's worth getting excited about. Oh, fantastic! Oh, very good, very good. Yeah, like I said, I've only got the digital copy, so I always like having I like that a pile of to-play games. I also have a pile just like that, and we'll get there. As always, if you're in the chat, do let me know and say hello, and any questions, let me know as well. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because my old eyes are terrible. And as I'll go through, I'll sort of just talk it through, obviously read it aloud, and then we're going to look at some of the game mechanics. As I said, the resistance system, I believe it's called, the system that sort of upholds Spire and Heart. I don't know anything about it, so forgive me if it takes me a little longer to get things going. I had that a little bit yesterday when we did our vampire stream. I was like, I do not understand certain things. But anyway, let's get started. So hello and welcome to Spire Quick Start. This book provides you with everything you need to get up and running with Spire: rules, background information, pre-generated characters, and a scenario to play through. Let's get right to it. So what is Spire the RPG about? Let's just, before I do anything, look at that cracking image. Let's just ignore the things that are hanging off it. Spire is a very tall and very old city located towards the centre of the land of Destera. 200 years ago, the Alfir, or High Elves, invaded from the north and, with the help of gun-toting human mercenaries, took Spire from the native Drow, or Dark Elves. The masked Alfir now rule Spire from gilded ice palaces within the upper areas of the city. They live lives of perverse luxury and senseless excess compared to the countless Drow who work in their factories, houses, and farms. Each Drow is required to serve a durance when they come of age, so 4 years of unpaid labour in service of an Alfir lord. Working conditions are poor, and injuries and deaths are common. Probably should have put a content warning at the beginning of this. Yes, so there's clearly obviously stuff about class, stuff about possibly slavery as well, and sort of oppression. Those are the main sort of themes. Again, that sort of like fancy punk kind of comes with that sort of rebelling against the upper echelons and sort of the rules as well on there. Traditional Desteran culture is under attack from the Alfir. Worship 2 of the 3 main goddesses of Old Spire has been forbidden, and cults devoted to them have been destroyed or radicalized and driven underground. Our players are members of one such cult, the Ministry of Our Hidden Mistress. Great title, love it. And call themselves ministers. Oh, yeah, I've always said this before when I do these streams. I love it when you have terminology for stuff like, obviously yesterday when we had Vampire the Masquerade, call each other kindred rather than like vampires. Having that sort of terminology and way to speak to people, like maybe having it on like a little sheet so that players can remember. And it's just, for me, that adds really a lot into the immersive experience, and I'm always a fan of that because it just really gets me grounded into that world. Brian. Kevin, where did you first hear about the game? I first heard about it from the One Shot Podcast Network. Actually, Kevin, I backed it long time ago. I basically, when I started doing What Am I Rolling, I had lots of Kickstarter games, and this was one of them. I'd heard about it originally because I sort of backed Goblin Quest, which was one of their earlier, Rowan Rook and Descartes' earlier books, which I absolutely loved. It uses a paranoia system of that sort of troubleshooters, like betraying everyone else, and it just came up on my feed. So that's where I first heard about it. But again, I don't know anything about this game really, other than I backed it and then I've never looked at it. But I know it's a very, very popular game, and people do talk about it as we've done one-shots of it and stuff. And then a couple of months ago, Shut Up and Sit Down did a whole sort of bit about why you should play Spire the RPG and Heart, which is an absolutely cracking video, which I highly recommend you check out after the stream as well. Brilliant. The player characters are members of one such cult. They call themselves ministers. They are paramilitary zealots living secret lives in service to their goddess of grace, subterfuge, and misdirection. They are also sworn to do anything necessary to remove the Alfir from power and return the Spire to the Drow. Fantastic. And there's the credits, which is always quite nice. Have it on, so be able to sort of like give that information and then have the credits as well. So yeah, Grant Howard and Christopher Taylor and Rowan McCall and Adrian Stone with the artwork. Fantastic. Editing, very, very important. Thank you, Christoph Walls. And Minerva Magenta. Yeah, Magenta. So yeah, copyright. So this Quickstart came out 2 years ago. So actually probably is a bit more up to date, perhaps maybe with that sort of 5th anniversary of Spire that when it came out as well. So yeah, I think I backed it. So I'm gonna have to go check it after the stream because I know there was someone going, well, actually it came out in 2017 or something. I think it was 2018 is when I backed it, but I'm sure we'll find out. Let's look at this. Oh, gorgeous image, isn't it? Sorry, I have to look at it. It's so cool because it almost looks like I think it presumably will tell us if it's made of like a stone or a natural matter. But it almost looks like a fungi being grown on the sides with the different layers as well. Like the idea that there's so many layers in this almost feels like if anyone's seen the most recent Dread film, and I appreciate I say the most recent Dread film, it's like over 10 years old, but with Keith Urban in it. That's how I imagine these sort of. That's what sort of is my touchstone for this, because I really loved that film and the soundtrack and the story and stuff. I just really loved, and so that idea of like enforcers in a high rise where you don't know who's on your side. It's all grim. You're all compact as well. The different levels in that. That's how I sort of see it. But what a cracking image! I absolutely love that. All right, Spire in brief. Brilliant. This is Spire, the tallest city on the continent and the oldest. Many have tried to measure its height and none have returned with the same answer. Ooh, I love that. But all agree that Spire is far too large to stand upright under any known laws of science. Built and rebuilt upon for generations and soaked in ancient curses and illegal magics, Spire defies the standard cartography. But for those eager to explore, here is a rough guide as to what is where. I will admit my pronunciation is not the best, so bear with me as we go through this. So the Amaranth, pride of the ruling Alfir, sits wreathed in a magical frost near the top of the spire. Rich and powerful high elves live here and while away their days in endless pursuit of beauty and status. The richest and most powerful high elves have the ear of the Spiral Council, an unelected cadre of clerics and plutocrats. Plutocrats, whose dream of empire propel the city-state into brutal wars of expansion. The Silver Quarter is riddled with casinos, luck priests. I love the sound of a luck priest, by the way. Canals and gangsters. Of course, there might be rivers and stuff in here. It sits legally atop Ivory Row, a tumble-down mess of faded grandeur, mad occultists, and avant-garde art collectives. Atop the spire, these towers of silence hold the bodies of the dead in New Haven, and the streets are fought over by rival death cults. On the side of the structure, a shanty district perch has been nailed and lashed onto the wall over successive generations. Pilgrim's Walk is a red light district for religions. Oh, that's quite cool. And it's packed with cutthroat cult recruiters, nuns with come to prayer eyes, and esoteric temples. Many drow prefer the Cathedral of Our Glorious Lady, a house for the only dark elf religion allowed in the city, which is cobbled together from spare parts and hope. Let's move in a little bit. The solar ballista, Basilica, there you go, is the seat of the state of religion. It's the seat of state religion, and pilgrims from all over the land travel for years to tread upon its sacred flagstones. The four seasonal gods of the Alfair wax and wane in popularity throughout the year. The most mercurial is Brother Harvest, the autumn god of endings, and the patron of the paladins who enforce the will of the council with blade and shot. Stuart, hello Stuart, on YouTube. Didn't know there was an episode on the One Shot podcast. No, I didn't. I mean, to be fair, the One Shot podcast has been going for years. Your best bet, I would say, is like, I don't know if they have the older episodes on their podcast feeds anymore, just because, like sometimes Apple and Spotify, they can only show up to a certain number. So I would absolutely recommend going to their website and searching for a particular one shot or particular particular one shot or particular game. So I definitely would have done it. It's something that I aspire to do as well with Where. But yeah, One Shot Podcast definitely does. They have so much content. They have all the resources to do that as well. But yeah, I'd recommend looking on their website if you want to check out a specific system, and then it should come up. Because sometimes searching, when you're searching through those podcatcher things, it's sometimes really difficult. I struggle myself. Cool. The Works is an ever-growing hive of industrial machinery, workshops and printing presses that use human retro-engineered technology from the East and forced drought labour to mass-produce goods on a scale undreamt of. Winding through is the Garden District, filled with mushroom farms and vats of algae that grow lightless using traditional drow farming methods. The Blue Port is a shifty maze of tents and stands ruled by the priests of Azur, the god of gold. The North Docks, pulled in trade from the river and are fought over by dozens of orders of plate mail armoured gangsters who call themselves knights. That's quite cool. Feels almost like a gangsters or gangs of New York, but everyone's in plate mail. The Vermissian, a train network, was intended to connect all of Spire together and allow travel at fascinating light speeds across the city. But due to poor budget decisions, a lack of clear communication, and puncturing a hole through into a parasitic hell dimension at the last minute, the entire network was condemned and abandoned 50 years ago. How true. It feels a lot like what's happening in this country just now. With all the railway stuff. Beneath the ground is Red Row, a lawless undercity of drugs and black magic and experimental theatre. Beneath that is the Relicus, a lightless pit of destitution and want. And beneath that is the Heart. Roll credits. A red, wet, curdled core of the city, where reality has become unstuck and stitched itself back together in an unsettling ways. But only the truly desperate would ever think about going there, which is interesting because we are going to go look at that quick start once we've done this one. So there you go. That's a really cool setup. There's so many cool ideas here in one structure. I really like that. Things to know. Let's I'll zoom in a little bit. Before we start playing, there's some things you'll to know about the characters, the city, and its people. Subvert but don't destroy. Wrest weapons from the hands of your enemies and turn them against them. Recruit cells from other organizations, even ones that work against you, and use them as tools. If you kill someone in authority, someone will replace them, and they will probably be worse. Turn them instead through blackmail or threats or bribery, and use them. You can't rule over ashes. You want the city to be standing when you're done. Still, when it comes to it, don't be afraid to resort to bloodshed, especially when your cover is on the line. These are almost like principles for players, like similar to the Powered by the Apocalypse. Like, here's what the players should, when you're playing a game of Spire, when you're playing a game of Powered by the Apocalypse, here are some things that you should be aiming to do with your characters, which is always really good to have. This is not a kind world. There are soft and gentle parts of it. There are easy lives, but you don't have one. You were born into an underclass within an underclass. You have struggled for everything you have, and even then somebody probably tried to take it away from you. You've been handed such a bad lot in life. In fact, you have joined a radicalized cell who worship a forbidden goddess and murder people in order to get revenge. You are brave. People don't know what they want, or more so, what they need. The drow need freedom, and you are the one to give it to them, even if that means hiding your actions. You are most likely to lie to your loved ones, sneak out while they sleep, and stockpile illegal weapons under your bed. You are living one wrong step away from death every second of your life. What a great last line that is. You're going to hurt people. That's unavoidable. It's a crime for you to spill blood, but it's justice when they do it. The city guard are drow, just like you, desperate and hungry and tired, but they're duty bound to stop you. excuse me, who are you going to hurt to get you what you want? Who won't you hurt? What will you do to preserve secrecy of the ministry and your mission? Feels very much like, you know, like that whole thing about the masquerade as well. Like, I guess with the masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade, obviously it's like you have to protect all sort of vampire activity. Otherwise, if one person is sort of outed, then the rest of them are going to be outed as well, and that's very bad news. So this idea that you have to preserve the secrecy of your unit, your cell, if anything, so that you can continue doing the work. This is going to kill you. One way or another, you're going to die doing this. Maybe you've made your peace with that, and maybe you're lying to yourself and saying that you're smarter than everyone else. But if you stay active in the ministry, you are going to wind up dead, or mad, or destitute, or all three. The best hope you've got is offloading the danger onto someone else, earning the promotion to the magister, or retiring. Earning the promotion to magister or retiring, but no one really retires. So you burn bright as best as you can and try to make a difference. There's always another level. You can't win this. Listen, you can take a street back, sure, maybe even a district, but if you make too much noise, take too much territory, someone much bigger and more dangerous than you will notice, and they will turn up and destroy you. So it's slow work, and you have to subvert rather than destroy, and that leaves you with risky assets all over the map, and when you finally secure a victory, one or two things happens. Either it gets taken off you by your enemies or your superiors, or it causes you untold problems, and suddenly you're the bastards in charge oppressing people. But that's how it goes, and better you than them, right? Your own family would sell you out. You know what ministers do? Ministers get people killed. Ministers used to meet in the cellar of the bar down the road, and then the sonar guard showed up and burnt it to the ground with everyone inside. Ministers abduct and kill people for reasons that no one can fathom. Ministers draw the attention of the city guard and the Alfir on the poorest, most downtrodden districts of Spire. Far better, then, to report a cell to the authorities and gain whatever reward are being offered to doing so. Better job prospects, a pocket full of sten, maybe even a nicer flat further up Spire. The ministry would also sell you out. The ministry are not your friends. You can't afford to allow. They can't afford to allow you to mess up or let information slip. They're invested so much in getting as far as they can have today, and their work has barely started. If you get something wrong and it causes problems, the ministry will quite gladly give you false information and send you into a trap to confuse their enemies. So we've got, cool, we've got a terms list used. We've got the dice we're going to be using for this. So D3, D6, D8, D10. Great. Dice pool. Refresh. Remove any of these dice stress from any resistance or combinations. Resistance. Great. So we'll come back to this as we need to when we're looking at stuff. Propped is an element or unimportant character present in the scene which can be exploited or interacted with by the player characters. Cool. Alright, so that sounds good. Oh, wow. Look at this image. Let's read this bit. Masks. The Alfir wear masks in public to show their face to the world is considered barbaric or obscene. The wealthier an Alfir is, the more masks they own, and the more precise they'll dress themselves for any given occasion. Poorer Alfir might only have their everyday mask and a fancy one worn on special occasions. The Alfir expect their servants and those around them to follow the same rules, so the more Alfir there are in the district, the more you see drows wearing masks out of politeness. Oh god, how do you say that word? Obsequiousness or obligation. I've never heard of that word. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. Interesting though. But yeah, so we've got our little terms used. We can always come back to that if we struggle with it. So here we go. This is the one I wanted to look at. The core mechanic. When your character performs an action and the game master asks you to roll, you roll a d10 and consider this chart. So 1 is a critical fail, take double stress. 2 to 5 is fail, take stress. 6 to 7, success at a cost, take stress. So success onwards really is 8, 9, or 10. Success, no stress, and then critical success, inflict 1 stress for each d10 you rolled. If you have the skill you need, roll another d10. If you have the domain you need, roll another d10. If you have a mastery over the skill, over this action, skill, or domain, roll another d10. So yeah, that's how you sort of create your dice pool, right? Mastery doesn't stack, so this one up here does not stack. So you can only use it once per action, no matter how many sources you get it from. You don't need a skill to benefit from mastery when using it, although you'll usually have both. You'll use the highest dice result to roll to resolve the action. The other dice don't matter unless they show a 10. Right, so it's not about the number of successes, it's just like the highest number. Okay. Unless it shows a 10 and you're inflicting stress on someone else. Each 10 rolled increases the stress you inflict by 1. Don't roll if there's nothing at stake. Yep. Only roll if the character has something to lose, which is represented by marking stress. And there's an example there, which we don't need to look at. I think that's fairly straightforward, that mechanic. Partial stress. Sometimes you're just rolling to avoid taking harm and not trying to achieve anything else in particular. You test to see if you can hang on to your mind after seeing something horrific, to avoid damage from someone taking a swing at you, or to escape from a burning building. On a 6 to 7 result, on such an action, you still take stress bits, but only 1 dice type lower than the usual. The same rules apply when you're buying stuff for the cheap. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. What do you mean 1 dice type lower? So that, I guess, interesting. I guess you roll what the stress is on depending on the dice value and get it lower. Difficulty. If the action is difficult, the GM subtracts dice from your pool. If your dice pool it would be 0 or fewer, roll 1 dice and downgrade the final result by 1 step. Oh, that's quite cool. I like that. So say it's been downgraded, it's really difficult, and you rolled an 8, you would go down one of those levels, so it actually would be a 6, a 7. That's quite cool. I like that. So you still get to roll, but success isn't as good because you're not because it's very difficult. I quite like that. Difficulty ranges from 0 to 2, so you need to have 2 successes, up to 2 successes. So if you have to rolling several dice, okay. So you can probably roll up to 4 d10s, right? That's what I'm thinking. Helping and group actions. For each character that assists you, if they have a relevant skill or domain, add 1 to your dice pool. I presume a 1d10, right? But they take stress the same way as you would. There is a limit to how many characters can aid you on any given action determined by the GM. Sure. For group skill checks such as sneaking somewhere, choose 1 player to lead the group. Yeah, I always agree with this. There's no point in everyone doing the skill check. I always pick the person who is the worst at stealth because that makes sense, right? That's the thing in D&D, right? There's some advancements, but they're not going to be in this quick start, which is fine. There are many more in Spire, the City Must Fall RPG book. Great. Oh, sorry, I missed a couple of notices. Back again with a TLDR. Yes, hello, Dead Toothbrush. Hello, Dan. I hope you're having a good bank holiday weekend. Did I see that you were out clubbing at 7 a.m? My word. That actually makes me feel really ill. I am not that sort of person as well. Oh, Obsequious. Thank you, Kevin. Obsequious, that's how we say it. Very much appreciate that. A stress mechanic is really interesting. Yes, I wonder, is it going to use the dice, is it values of dice? But I'm sure we'll find out. I see an image there. That's quite helpful. I'm always a big fan of things to push out that. So yeah, we build the dice pool. So you start with 1d10, and then you've got a relevant skill, you've got a relevant domain, or any of these things, plus any assistance. So yeah, so add an additional d10 for all those sort of things, and then take a 1d10 depending on the difficulty. Interesting. And then you roll the dice pool. This is an example. If the dice roll is fewer, yeah. So the highest success. So rolled a 9 is the total, right? Just check your highest dice. So this would be a success. Deal stress to an adversary using your equipment's dice. Oh, it's critical. I see. Yes. What? I see. Yeah. Deal an additional stress. Success. Deal stress to an adversary using your equipment's dice. And failure. So failure, yeah, it's quite bad. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 1 to 5 is complete. It's failure in some way, and then you take stress. Okay. Interesting. I'm not so sure about this diagram. I get it, but also I don't. Oh, and an actual like flow diagram as well. Take fallout. If you took stress, the GM will test for fallout like so. Roll a d10. Is it lower than the total stress? Yes. PC takes fallout. Oh, this is like almost damage then, right? I see. So, alright, so let's say, so it's not lower, so no fallout from taking stress. If you do take stress, here's the level of stress. Minor fallout, moderate fallout, severe fallout. So I presume that's almost like damaging conditions on that. For less lethal fallout rules, see Spire, page 13. So I presume the actual core book. So this is the sort of the bigger core book on that. I'm just looking back at this. Depending on what you rolled, I guess it depends. I guess this is more general success, and then you're dealing stress maybe in combat, and then this is the bad things that happens. Yes. Oh, I see. Yeah. So at the top is all the. So there's like. So this is like the good side of like the positive benefits if you roll 6 or higher, and then this is the sort of negative side, or slightly negative side if you critical fail, whatever. And then the 6 to 7, that is that sort of mixed success, right? On top of that. Cool. There we go. We'll find out what the stress actually means. Stress. When you act and something goes wrong, you'll take stress of one of your resistances. There are 5 kinds of resistances. We have blood, mind, silver, shadow, and reputation. So blood is more about physical damage and exhaustion. Mind is mental stress, instability, and insanity. Okay. Silver is loss of money or resources. Yes. I mean, that is always very stressful. Shadow, loss of secrecy, damage to cover, identities, police and government attention. Ah, okay. I was going to say that's reputation. Loss of social standing in a group or community. Sometimes it will be stated outright what kind of stress a situation doles out. For example, when a Largen casts a spell, more often than not they'll be asked to mark stress against mind. Yeah, that makes sense. As they will be channeling or they will channel the vast energies of their goddess. If it's not clear where the stress would go, the GM and the player can work it out together. Okay, that's quite good. Situations inflict stress on player characters relevant to the risk and danger involved. The amount of stress is determined by the GM. Breaking into a low-rent slum the Relicus will cause a 2d3 stress on a failure. It's a d6 to infiltrate on a gun-ho red robe bar, and it's a d8 if you're sneaking somewhere that's really important. Oh, okay, it's almost like the consequences of it. I see. Like the Duke's personal paddle steamer headquarters in the docks. If you're fighting someone or running away from them, you can take stress. You'll usually take stress equal to the amount that their weapon inflicts. Okay, yes, so this is sort of like the skill check failing stuff on top of it, and then if you're fighting, if you something on their weapon gives you stress. If you're dealing with multiple enemies at once and suffer stress, take +1 stress for each enemy after the first. Okay, great, so you're not constantly getting like, I don't know, 3d stress, and then suddenly someone else comes in with a d6 stress all that something. It's just like, do that first one of d3 stress, +1, +1, +1. Each time you take stress, the GM will roll a d10 to see if you suffer fallout, definitely codified negative effects. If the d10 is lower than your current stress total, you suffer fallout. Great. It's like a panic check. Removing stress. You can remove stress from your characters in one of 4 ways. You can lay low to remove all stress suffered, but the plot will move ahead without you, and things will occur outside of your control. You can act to remove stress by narratively spending time doing something that would remove stress in that from that category. For example, borrowing money from a friend to lower the silver stress, visiting a doctor to lower blood stress, etc. Remove a d3, d6 or d8 stress depending on the lengths you go to in order to recover. Ooh, cool. You can refresh by acting in accordance with your character's refresh action, outlined by your class or your additional abilities. When you do so, remove a d3, d6 or d8 stress depending on how fully or how dramatically you fulfill the requirements of your refresh action. Okay, and finally, suffering fallout reduces the amount of stress your character carries. It shifts from the abstract to the definite. When you suffer minor fallout, remove free stress. Moderate fallout, remove 5 stress, and severe fallout, you remove 7 stress. Alright, let's have a look at the example as well. Stuart says, the stress fallout mechanic is excellent. I've played a lot of Heart, which uses the same system, and it can be used as a lot of spice to scenes and situations without the GM's effort. Perfect. Hey, I'm a big fan of making the life easier for the GM. We are actually going to look at Heart Quick Start after we've done this Quick Start as well, because basically the real reason why I'm sort of doing this is that I'm going to be playing in a stream of Heart in November, and I just want to get to grips with like what the system is before diving into the core books. So that's brilliant. Yeah. I've heard really good things about Heart and Spire, so yeah, I'm interested to see what the mechanic is. Well, let's read through this example, just because I want to get my head around the stress mechanic. It seems really, really cool, and I'm a big fan of making it easier for the GM who's running this. So, Anna is playing Harold, an aging Lajan, a priest of the Drow Moon goddess. Harold's total stress is getting pretty high after evading some city guard patrols, especially his shadow stress, and Anna has a few options of how to lower it. Firstly, Harold could lay low, removing all the stress from all resistances, and the GM decides this would give the city guard a chance to uncover one of the group's hidden caches of weapons that would be confiscated. Alternatively, Harold could act to remove stress from his shadow resistance, so that's a specific one. For example, bribing a sympathetic guard to say he's fled the area, convincing a local bar owner to provide him with an alibi, or burning evidence. This would remove D3, D6, or D8 stress from the shadow, and exactly how much is up to the GM. Harold could also use the refresh action from his class, help those who cannot help themselves, so that's almost like their special ability. During play, Harold can take great lengths to protect those hurt by the Alfir by putting himself in danger as he does so. As above, this would remove a D3, D6, or D8 stress, but can be removed for any resistance, as Harold finds the strength to continue with the rebellion. Oh, that's really cool. I like that. Finally, although Harold might not like it, when he suffers fallout, Anna could remove stress from any resistance. If he pushes his luck and gets arrested, for example, that's moderate fallout, it would remove 5 stress. Oh, that's a really good example. I hadn't thought about like if you can either work specifically on one of your resistances, or you could use your refresh action. That's cool. And yeah, I like that stress mechanic of removing it. It's kind of like you discuss it and you're like, ooh, okay, I'm always a big fan of discussing with the player like what they're doing and what they're trying to achieve, and then using the guidance of the rules to help them in some way. Nice. Okay, keeping track. The GM keeps track of the player's character's stress. This has 2 effects. It makes it much easier to roll for fallout, and it shifts stress from a mechanical effect to a narrative description. When the GM allocates stress to a player character, they should describe what's happening in the world, not just to say the number and move on. I agree with that. If a player wants to know how much stress they're suffering from, you can either tell them numerically, which is simple, if a bit boring, or again describe it in narrative terms. Rather than saying you've got 4 stress marked against mind and blood each, say you can feel your heartbeat ringing in your ears, you taste tin in your mouth, you can't focus on what anyone is saying. Ooh, I like that. I like that idea that, yeah, you don't know how stressed you are as a character, and you leave it to the GM. I think that's quite fun, actually. I'm always a big fan of like saying to people, oh, you need to get a DC 12 to succeed and stuff. I like that kind of play, just so that it's just a lot easier to be honest and open. I find that anyway for as a GM. But to keep it hidden, and if they ask like, oh, it's about risking it, right? Because this whole game is about like chancing it and risking it and trying to subvert. I like that idea that you don't have all the information, which would make sense if you're playing like cells in this game, you don't know everything, because as soon as somebody is found out and taken away, they can't give all the information out to the guards, so that could be quite cool. You can ask for players to keep track of their own stress and roll their own fallout, but in practice they tend to forget about the second part. So it's up to you. We prefer it this way, but it might not work for your group. I mean, that is fair. Additional resistance slots. Each character will have additional resistance slots against certain resistances determined by their class and abilities. Stress marked in these additional resistance slots doesn't count towards the character's total stress for the purposes of determining fallout. They are free. Armor also functions as an additional resistance slots for blood. Right, yep. You can learn more about this in the equipment section. And these slots are described as plus X resistance, or so plus 1 blood would give you access to an additional slot in blood that isn't accounted for in accounted towards fallout. Oh, so almost like a temporary temporary slots essentially. So once they're gone, perhaps, or once they're filled, then you can start on your actual resistances. Very cool. Does it say how many resistances you have? I mean, I know we've got pre-gen, so we can look this up. So, but I just wanted to see. So special stress situations. The curse. If a drow is caught in bright sunlight without proper protection, roll, resist, or suffer d6 stress to blood or mind immediately. If they have proper protection, it's only a d3 stress per day. Minor incidental exposure, overcast days, or sunset and sunrise inflicts 1 stress. It's rare for a drow to die of sun exposure unless deliberately restrained or surprised. And then magic and stress. There are 2 kinds of magic: divine, which is sanctioned by a church or a temple, and uses established rites and rituals and occult, which hacks into ambient levels of unknowable energy and rewires them into strange and powerful patterns. Divine magic doesn't require a roll to cast. You simply mark the stress. Roll for fallout, and use the effect listed in the ability description. When you cast an occult spell, make the appropriate roll, using listed in the ability itself, and if you suffer stress from this action, you suffer d6 stress minimum, but you might not suffer any stress at all. Curious. Oh, exciting that you're doing a heart actual play. There are too few of them around. Yes, absolutely. It's on. It will be on. I can do a plug for it at the end of the stream. It's not for a little while. It's like I said, it's in November, but it's a actual play UK on Twitch and on YouTube as well. We're basically a group of UK tabletop RPG podcasters come together, and we try and do streams every Friday or thereabouts. And I've literally just finished one on Solemn Veil, which I did a Too Long Didn't Read tabletop RPG stream a few weeks ago, which is all sort of folklore and horror, and yeah, really liked that, really enjoyed that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I can't remember off the top of my head who else is on it just now, but it's done by the wonderful Matt from Merely Role Players, which is an absolutely cracking podcast. I would highly recommend checking them out. They also look at different systems as well, and it uses like actors, and people in performing arts, sorry, not actors, but people who love role-playing games, and it's really performative, and yeah, really enjoy that. So would check that out as well. Sorry, I left it on this really great image of a building on fire. Let's move on. Okay, fallout. So each time a player character takes stress, the GM checks for fallout to see if there's any kind of ongoing serious effect at play. The GM rolls a d10 and compares it to the current total stress marked against the character's resistances. If the d10 result is lower than the character suffers fallout. The level of fallout depends on the amount of total stress the character has when the fallout is triggered. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So yeah, from 2 to 4 is the minor one, 5 to 8 is moderate, and then 9 plus is severe. I guess then, like, your stress total is maximum 10, I'm guessing? Or I guess it doesn't matter too much, because if you're going to roll a d10, as soon as it gets, you know, as soon as you're over 10, it kind of doesn't matter. You're going to get severe fallout, right? Work out what happens based on the type of stress that triggered the fallout. Usually, that's the resistance type that has the most stress marked against it. If there is a mix or it's not clear, go with whatever sounds most interesting. You can choose from the list opposite or make your own. Oh, great. Yes, I love examples like that. Remember, on minor fallout, remove 3 stress. On moderate fallout, remove 5. On severe fallout, remove 7. If you like, you can allocate 2 further fallout results from the category before one is selected instead. So instead of being knocked out, you can be bleeding and panicked. Okay. You can also upgrade fallout from one stage to the next if it's dramatically appropriate. So if a character who's already bleeding suffers a further minor fallout during the same fight, you can get rid of that bleeding and give them the moderate result instead, like a broken limb. Okay, cool. So yeah, you could either have a couple or just change it so it is it goes to that moderate thing, so it gets worse. Absolutely, love that. You or an ally can mitigate blood or mind fallout with the appropriate fix check. Minor fallout can be removed, but anything moderate or above can only be stabilized and managed and will need long-term or professional care to be removed. Magical sources can also cure fallout rather than removing stress. 3 stress to repair minor fallout, 5 stress to repair moderate, and 7 stress to repair severe fallout. But severe fallout isn't generally the sort of thing you can cure. Non-player characters mark stress like players, but they only have 1 resistance. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. When it takes a total equal to their resistance, they flee the situation, drop out of the conflict, or do whatever it is the players want them to do. Bond fallout. Bonds are relationships that player characters have with each other and non-player characters. In the case of NPCs, they can suffer stress and fallout as though they were a resistance. In this text, we use bond to refer to both the relationship and the person with whom the relationship is shared. As it is tracked separately from stress, NPC bonds get their own section for fallout. Okay, so here's some examples of some fallout stuff. We can have a mistake, where your bond's actions raise suspicion, so marked D3 of stress in shadow. Depleted, some moderate ones, example, in trouble, I'm always in trouble. Severe betrayal, mark D8 stress against your shadow. Terrifying, and be made an example of. So these are ones with your bonds, right? What did it say for sorry, I'm just seeing. Remind it. So instead, I thought it could show us. You could choose from the list opposite. This list seems to be from your bonds. I wonder if it's an actual list somewhere. Well, fine. There you go. I was like, where? I guess opposite page. Opposite page. I get you. Great. So let's have a quick look. So these different kinds of fallout. So panicked, shaken. Yes, I'm good of these. Like these conditions of what they are sort of. What the condition's called, also what the fallout is called. These are low-term, short-term, low-impact effects, what resistance it's affecting, and lose access to your domains is shaken. That's quite brutal. Then moderate, you've got broken leg, broken limbs, essentially. Memory holes. Mind, you did something that you can't remember. The GM and the other players work out what it is without your knowledge. That's pretty cool. Although permanently weird, it's just something that's part of my life, I think. As weird, but it will happen in every situation till cured. You can suppress the weirdness for a situation by marking D3 stress to mind. So what? I was going to say weird here. You're weird, you upset a useful NPC. Permanently weird. Very cool. Severe. Chosen. You evade death, but it comes at a price from a god who saved you. Obsessed renegade. Wrath of the sun gods. You attract the attention of the solar paladins. Oh no! And many of your allies are killed, your safe house is burned to the ground, etc. So moderate represents serious problems that are ongoing or acute. And then severe fallout means the end of a character's story or represents a huge change in it. They are permanent, lasting effects that may have an impact on a character's allies and bonds, as well as the characters themselves. They are normally applied by agreement between the player and the GM. I think that's fair. I think when you're getting something severe like that, like certainly that Wrath of the Sun Gods one, that's pretty game changing, isn't it? Turned. You're pressured into becoming a double agent. These are really cool. I really like these examples. But yeah, definitely agree with that. Sort of, what does the player want out of this? You know, they've suffered a consequence. They're going to suffer a consequence. But let's talk about their story, and maybe you have that private chat away from the table as well. That'd be really cool. Kevin says, I love how often the question of what does this mean gets followed by, there's a useful chart right there. It's good. This is good design and layout. Yeah, and to be fair, like, presumably if you'd printed this out or have the PDF or anything like that, again, you could see it as a spread. I like doing it just one page because it makes me actually read it. Otherwise, I just skip between the pages. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I must say, like, if we just zoom out a little bit of the artwork, what I love is the interior graphic design here of the, like, almost feels like very dirty, like almost like a pamphlet. I really love that, and I love these little details here with the images as well. So yeah, I love anything like that. There's someone's actually thought about, like, how do we design the page and the color of it, because again, the color is not straight like page white. It's a little bit of like red in here, so it almost looks like it's been red in some way, or has maybe had water spilled on it, you know, a little bit. You can definitely tell like this sort of the white to pink sort of like gradient going down on it as well. All right. Skills and domains. Your character will have access to skills and domains when the game begins and has the opportunity to gain more for advancement. There are no levels or values in these. You either have them or you don't. We won't look at them all too much, but we'll have a few examples. So all actions are linked to a skill. If you have the right skill, you add a D10 to your roll. Yes, that goes back to that graphic that we saw before. So what we've got compel, we've got fix. That fix one came up earlier. So the city is crumbling from without and within. So it's a good idea to make, do, and mend. Use fix to repair broken people, things, and relationships, as well as to build things. Investigate, always quite important. Secrets and information are Spire's primary currency, no matter what the gold traders tell you. And investigate can help you find things that other people don't want you to use. Use investigate to examine a scene, situation, or collection of information to come to useful conclusions based on your findings. Sneak and steal, all that sort of thing. So these are the sort of main ones, I guess. Ooh, names. Character names in Spire draw on real-world sources for inspiration. Drow names often sound French, but change the qu to a k, and compress multiple words into single. Human names draw on a lot of combinations of Welsh and Greek, and the Alpha use short poetic phrases as their names, operating in the same way as a sawn-off haiku. Oh, incredible! Whether Alfir have first names or not is determined by the current fashion, and some of them prefer to use descriptors only. Oh, I love that. What a nice little bit of lore. Alright, domains. I assume as well, this may be not all the list of skills that we have, because again, this is the quick start. Maybe these are just the ones that I sort of talked about from those pre-gens that we're going to come up to in a second, no doubt. Domains. Domains are linked to areas of the city and to contexts you might have, but they don't link intrinsically to particular actions in the way that skills do. Instead, they give you a general bonus to everything you do that's influenced by a domain. The Academia domain lets you roll an extra dice when you leaf through old books or take part in a spirited historical debate, for example, but it also lets you roll an extra die when you're in an area associated with learning and higher education. Oh, cool. So it could be, so it could be something about your action, or it could be like, because you're in the library, you get to roll it because you were part of this domain. So if you've got it, you could roll an extra dice if you sneak into the library, evade a university porter who uncovered your safe house, or track a scholar back to meeting her secret contact. So that's quite cool. It's very almost loosey-goosey about using it. So I can imagine there's a little bit of debate about, can I use this domain because it's related to this? So a little bit of discussion between the players and the GM on that, but that sounds really fun. Jacques becomes Jack. Sounding like G-Ok rather than J. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you for that, Kevin. I appreciate that. So here's some examples. So we've got crime, commerce, high society, and again, I assume there'll be quite a few more of this in certainly the source books for like Strata and the other ones. Again, the Book of Masks was the other one I think I saw. So that'd be quite cool. And then low society districts include the North Docks, oh god, I can never say that word. De Relictus, the Pilgrim's Walk, the Works, the Garden, Perch, and anywhere else that people are struggling to survive day to day. The Order. This domain encompasses those who keep the peace in and around Spire, whether successfully or not. The City Guard for the most part, but also the Army and the Council themselves. So there's some examples there. If you possess a skill or domain and gain it a second time, you gain a knack, proficient in a particular facet of the broad spectrum covered by the skill or the domain. Using a knack allows you to roll with mastery, but as ever, you cannot gain more than one dice for a mastery roll. Okay, I get that. And then we go on to equipment. Let's have a quick look here. For the most part, lets you do a job. A lockpick lets you pick locks, climbing gear lets you scale a wall, perfume makes you smell like a fancy courtier. Trying to perform a task without a proper equipment can increase the difficulty of an action and can even make it impossible. Most equipment you will use will fall into the above category, and it has no mechanical no mechanical effect on the game. To buy items, the GM decides on the cost involved, so D3 for minor purchases, D6 for moderate purchases, D6 for moderate purchases, and D8 for really expensive or exotic materials. Sometimes some items just can't be purchased without expending a lot of effort to find a seller and do whatever it is they want. That's worth more than money to acquire it. Then the player makes a roll, usually compel commerce, but deceive commerce could also work if they're trying to pull a fast one. If the player rolls an 8 or more on their highest dice, their character manages to purchase the item without causing a big impact on their finances. It costs money, but they have enough to afford it. A 6 or a 7, so that's the mixed result. That means they take the full stress rolled, but they get the item. Usually the stress applies to the silver resistance. But what happens if they roll a 5 or lower? They still mark stress, but they don't get the item. Oh, brutal. They might have to grease some palms to set up a meeting, silver, or endanger their reputation by organising a buy only to turn tail and run when the price is too high, reputation. Maybe the city guard gets wind of someone trying to purchase unusual goods and starts poking around, shadow. To sell something, make a roll to find a buyer and then remove either a D3, D6 or D8 stress from silver or reputation, depending on how valuable the item was. Players shouldn't have to roll to buy everything they use day to day. As with everything else, the game master should only ask for a roll if something is at stake, and it could be interesting if they fail. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'm not necessarily a big fan of shopping episodes. It just takes a long time to get going, and you could do shopping, but what's the point of it? Is that you're just preparing for the next mission, but maybe there's a role play element for it. There's a hook or something. You know, that downtime should be about downtime, not necessarily. And shopping is such a small part of it. You know. Because ultimately people do shopping because they want to talk to interesting shopkeepers, right? And I think you could do that no matter what. So, derelictus. Thank you, Kevin. From the word derelict plus the romanticization to make it a city. It's a area / neighborhood. Derelictus. Thank you. I really appreciate these pronunciation guides. You also say, I like how the broad the skills can be giving the player a lot of utility without becoming too granular. Agreed with that, absolutely. And I like the money system, also avoiding to have to come up with the with an economy and prices. Yeah, I'm like, it's so not interesting as a GM. Being that and it's the same in improv as well, so I'm an improviser as well, and there's a big thing in saying like don't do transactional scenes, and it's so true. Anything that where you're buying something or you're teaching someone something, it's really dull to watch unless something comes up about the people involved, whether it's like you're trying to get an item before as part of like some sort of mob deal, that's the sort of context where it's interesting. But yeah, I've seen so many things that, hey, no, you're doing it wrong. Just do this again. It's like, boring. Absolutely boring. Weapons. So these are weapons. So like unarmed damage. Oh, right, sorry, yeah. So like these are the kinds of weapons that you get. So it goes into these 4 categories. So 1 stress is just like, maybe just punching. And then you got knives and clubs, so D3. Swords, guns, crossbows, D6. And then great swords, cannon, D8. I was like, who's brought the cannon again? Steve? There's many examples of weapons in our pre-generated characters and adversaries. Oh my god. Adversaries. Enemies. In Snuff Out the Sun scenario at the back of his book. So yes, so that's the free scenario we get. We probably won't look at it too much because I'm aware of time. Because I do want to look at heart as well. And I've got range. Yeah, I think we get what range is. It's a tag. It shows like the max amount of weapons. The max amount of distance you can do it for making the roll, and ammunition as well. Yeah, no need to track every individual piece. So dull. Tags. Weapons may also have tags attached to them that mechanically affect the way they're used. Most tags will only take effect when a player uses a weapon. As a rough guide, a tag refers to rolling dice. The NPCs can't use it. Thank goodness. So here's some examples. Concealable. Oh, when you attempt to conceal this weapon, roll with mastery. Oh, that's quite cool. Cool tag there. Zoom out a little bit so we can see point blank. When used at extremely close range, the weapon damage is increased by 1 dice size. Anything over a medium range decreases by 1. Unreliable. When you fail an action using this equipment, it cannot be used for the remainder of the situation. Very cool. Armor, again, some different armor sets. So So we've got concealable there, heavy. Oh, so those are the three types of armor tags. Same fashion as weapons. Great. And then bonds. Let's have another look at these bonds. Bonds are connections with the player characters share with other people, groups, or organisations in Spire. It's broadly positive connection, if perhaps a complicated one. Once per situation, when you act in a way that benefits someone you share a bond with, you may do so with mastery. NPC bonds. You can also ask an NPC bond to perform a favour on your behalf, something that they wouldn't normally do and which puts them and the relationship under stress and danger. They're under no obligation to do what you ask, and the GM may ask for a check to get them to comply, but if they do so, they incur stress based on the level of the favour asked. Treating performing a favour as a normal roll, an NPC will roll 1d10 plus 1d10 if it's within their area of expertise, plus another d10 if it's in their neighbourhood or home. Yeah, it's more likely they'll do the favour if it's or do well if it's near to them. If an NPC bond suffers stress when they roll to achieve a task, treat the relationship as a separate resistance allocated to the character and locate stress to it. Here's some example stress levels. So early on, if it's just one stress, giving advice or access to general information within their domain. If we go to D8, betray a friend, commit major transgressions, engage in high-risk actions, donate large amounts of resources to the ministry. You can remove stress from a bond by doing a favour for your ally in return. The bigger the favour, the more stress you remove. Excellent. And then bond fallout. Bonds don't count towards your total stress for fallout. They're handled separately. Okay. Each as their own track. At the end of each session, roll to check for fallout for each bond that a player has marked stress to in that session. Bond fallout is detailed as a fallout section on page 10. Oh, cool. And I'm glad that's at the end of the section. That's like the admin that you do just before you finish off. If a bond is temporary, such as one earned from a spell or a class ability, then roll for fallout when it is removed. There are 3 levels of NPC bonds. Individual, which is a single person. Street, which is a small to medium organisation. And then city, which is a district-wide organisation with considerable influence. Running the game. Is this continue? Oh, sorry, this continues this way, right? Yeah, so Catspore is a Knight of the Northern Docks. It's an individual level. Those are the gangsters, right? That's pretty cool. The Knightly Order, the Riddling Pig is street level, and the Knights of the Northern Docks is city level. So that's an example there. A bonds level reflects its overall capabilities and the scale it works at. The GM and the player are encouraged to use their common sense here and judge fairly as to what an organisation of a given size might be able to achieve. If a bond works against an entity with a lower level than its own, it does so with mastery. Ah, clever. A bond can't work against an entity with a bond can't work against an entity with a higher than its own level. Find a level appropriate entity within it for them to tackle. So, for example, the Order of the Riddling Pig went after a lone spy. They'd roll an extra dice. If they took on a rival pub, it would be a normal roll, and they don't have sway to take on the Knights as an organisation as a whole. Right. Kevin says, bond mechanics like this help players remember those NPCs and in turn helps with the world building and immersion. Yeah, I agree. I quite like that. And just keeping a track of it as well. You could be like, I need to ask a big favour of them and you don't want to necessarily lose them as well. So yeah, I agree. Anything like that which keeps them connected to the world is really important. Then we've got some safety tool stuff, which is excellent. Again, we've done this before on Too Long Didn't Read, so I won't read it all out, but yeah, essentially, talking to each other, being open about when you're having fun, and stop if you're not having fun. Using lines and veils, obviously that is one of the traditional safety tools that we use over here on Ware and in most RPG stuff. I didn't realise it was from the Nordic LARP scene though. That's pretty cool. So that's all good. X card, of course, you use the X card if you, the player, feel uncomfortable, either just like an X, making a symbol of it, or clicking, or sending an X to the GM if you need to. You never need to justify it, but you might need to clarify what the element is, perhaps, as well. The X card is great because it functions as a safe word for role-playing and allows you to tackle some exciting and upsetting subjects with the understanding that people are encouraged to stop it if they feel uncomfortable. Especially with a game like this, I can imagine that you just want to just take care, etc. High-level stress on a bond. NPC, you want me to go out of the city and spend my own money? There better be something in it for me. I think that's just me anytime people want me to do something. Oh, it's down the road? Can I get a meal deal with that? I don't know. And then some tips and advice. The GM never rolls dice, thank goodness. Makes my life easier. Don't make the players roll dice unless they have to. Something's always at stake. Make notes and then refer to them. Ow, I feel seen. Say yes, but be careful. Yes, there's always that thing about yes-anding someone, and then it goes quite out of the way. Fail forward. Reuse before you invent. Always try to use old materials or characters and locations that the characters have interacted with before inventing new material, because reusing established facts is how improvised stories gain traction and weight. It is easy and it works. Ask questions and then use the answers. Yeah, I'm a massive fan of this as well. If you don't know precisely what, in a particular situation, a player asks, are there any dealers in the occult around here? Then feel free to turn the question back on the players. Tell me, are there any dealers around here? If they are, what are they like? And if not, why not? Use their answers and everyone will feel more engaged in the story, and you didn't have to do any work. Hooray. Alright, the laws of Spire are at best vague and at worst oppressive. In general, they're designed to keep the drow down and protect the interests of the Alfear state. It is very hard not to do something technically illegal. And whilst the city guard are bound by the same bureaucracy as everyone else in the city, they have a wide variety of excuses to arrest, abuse and assault drow citizens, including and not limited to suspicion of loitering, insufficient piety and inappropriate glances. Oh man, very good. Oh wow, what a cracking image. Sorry, just looking at the artwork. Beautiful. And then we have the scenario. We won't read through the whole scenario because again, I'm aware of time and I do want to go into heart, but I do want to look up the character sheets. I want to see what they look like. Oh, but let's look at this. So the non-player characters, interesting. They're sort of split out into these sort of paragraphs a little bit about them. No sort of stats, which makes sense because you're not going to be rolling anything, so you're going to be all about those resistances, aren't they? So that's pretty good. Some locations as well, some difficulties, default stats. Ah, here we go, some default stats. Some NPCs, if they're good at fighting or have interesting abilities, have stat blocks describing them in mechanical terms. If an NPC doesn't have a specific stat block, use the default one. So difficulty 0, their resistance sort of track is 4, and then equipment is whatever they grab to defend themselves. Good to know. So, ooh, zoom it out a little bit more, so just keep going a little bit. The end. So let's look at a character sheet. Cool. Sancel is the example we're going to look at. So this is their class is bound. Their refresh is to bring a criminal to justice. So if they want to refresh any of their resistances, they have to do that. Their durance is information broker. Got some abilities here. Surprise infiltration. Nothing can keep you out. Once possession, you insert yourself into a situation in which you're not currently present, so long as there's some conceivable way for you to get in there. Secret of fear in brackets divine, so this is magic, right? You rattle the cage that keeps the god bound in your blade and terrifies your enemies. Mark a D3 stress of shadow. Your weapons, your bound weapons dice size increases by 1 for the next situation. Very cool. And here are your bonds. There's the so an NPC, another character. See reverse. So we'll check that out, and that's where you'd put your fallout consequences as well. Ah, cool. So, I see. So, yeah, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, so that you have 10 slots for your resistances, but you get some free ones, depending on presumably your abilities and maybe armor as well. That's probably armor for blood, right? Oh, I like that. I like that. And you could obviously increase that if you got extra things. So, oh, that's really cool. I really like that. And then your skills as well. So, if you're doing. Ah, I see. So these are the skills that you have, and these are the domains, and these are the ones that you would add if you were deceiving someone. So if you're already rolling a D10 and it was a deceive, you would then roll an extra D10 on top of that. And if it's a part of a domain, it's saying crime, you would roll another D10 on top of that as well. And then if you got proficiency, and again it becomes a knack, that means mastery in it as well. Right, I get you. Oh, that's cool as well. So for each of these pre-generated characters, you also get like a. If you want to play this, you might want to play this character if you like these things, which is quite cool. So play as Sancel if you want to hide, sneak, and hunt from the shadows. Blend into crowds and stab people quietly. Pray to the small gods in your equipment for luck. And a little bit of information. And then some bonds. Let's look at this. Actually, let's read out the information. I don't want to rush over it too much. Before your family was crushed to death by a stampeding Solar Temple congregation, you were a well-adjusted Solar worshipper with a promising career in accountancy. After, you wound up on the streets doing things you weren't proud of to survive. At the age of durance, you were put into service of an alpha crime lord and tasked with tracking down their enemies, both real and imagined, and bringing them to justice. Oh yeah, so durance is what you're doing as your unpaid labour, right? So information broker, right? I remember now. As much as you hated the work, you were very good at it, or you were really good at it. One razor blade coup later, you were back on the streets and fighting for your life. You fled to the shanty district of Perch to lay low and found a place you belonged. Here you could take your talents with as an investigator and use them to help out the oppressed. Here you joined the ministry. You hold the alpha responsible for the wretched way your life has shaken out, and you're ready to start bringing them to justice. Your bonds. You have an individual level bond with Bostelos, a human trader of dubious relics who operates in the Plaza of 1,000 Sunrises outside the Solar Basilica. That's not how you say it, is it? Basilica. You have a bond with one of the other NPCs who you rescued from a dangerous situation. Describe the situation they found themselves in. So yeah, so that's, again, having that, if you're all pre-gens, it's a nice way to add something a little bit extra to each time you're playing it, so that you already have those ones. They're not sort of predetermined. You could just have that discussion as well. I'm a big fan of that. Which dealer do you owe money to? The dealer I owe money to is definitely Mr. Tesco's. The dealer of meal deals, I think. And there's some other ones as well. Oh, Defoy. Gutter Cleric. Cool. Derwent. Oh. DL Serpent Eye. Mallory Hemlock. Great name. Love that. Bonchance. Oh, how do you say that? Risky? Bonchance, I'm going to call them. That's the midwife. Oh, right. Yes, I've heard about those. Sounds good. So yeah, so those are your pre-gen characters. What's it? 5 pre-gen characters we've got. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 6 pre-gen characters. Great. So you've got a lot to choose from, and lots of things, and a decent-sized one-shot as well from the sort of Quickstarts. Snuff Out the Sun. So intended to get you up and running with Spire. It should also take between 2 to 3 sessions of play to run. Okay, that's good to know. It's always good to know how long to take, rather than like trying to get everything done in 3 hours. It's been designed to stand alone as a story, but allows integration with a conspiracy kit to allow you to continue the story and pursue the antagonist and their secret organisation throughout the city. Oh, so it's a great jumping off point as well. Great, fantastic. Well, there you go. So that's our quick look at Spire. Yeah, some really interesting things there. I think I'm definitely going to have to get to grips with the actual core book, I think, just to really get those mechanics nailed down. I'd really like the base mechanic for that. But also, I appreciate my pronunciations are not the best as well. But already you've got some really interesting facts and some really interesting names for places, and this interesting history that we've built up between the Alpha and the Drow, and like how you sort of go around doing that, and the bonds as well. Really interesting. So on that, let's switch over to our heart quick start as well. So this is a little bit longer. This is 57 pages, so much longer, but is within the same world of Spire. This is a quick start, so we'll get through as much of this as we can, because I do want to finish roughly about 3:30 before I can go on to the next stream. But yeah, let's check out Heart. So this is obviously, we looked at Spire, which is like the above, and now we're going to go beneath. That sort of briefly mentioned the Spire. Right beneath everything, the Undercity, the Underspire, etc., you go to Heart, which had that sort of thing about like it is disconnected from reality and it's stitching itself back up, which I love. I love that sort of eldritch weirdness going on, right? So that's, oh wow, look at the artwork on this as well, and I love the sort of font style they've done for this. So Heart, the city beneath. Above us, the city Spire stretches into the sky, and beneath us, the city Heart stretches into the earth. Down through dirt and rock and water, down through the depths of darkness, down into madness and sickness, down into something ancient and other. Folk go into that place looking for something. Secrets of magic long lost or never discovered. Spells that itch in your blood. Unknowable creatures to hunt and harvest. Somewhere to hide or start again. Forgiveness from a god that can't hear them. Beg for it. Oh, forgiveness from a god that can't hear them, beg for it. And now you're thinking you've got it all figured out. Wonder what you're looking for. The heart can smell you. Oh, grim. The heart knows you're coming. When you walk out that door, when you climb down the chasm at the end of the road, when you crawl on your belly through the writhing press of rock, when you emerge beaten and bloody, it will have you. The heart knows what you want, and by the goddess, it will give it to you or kill you trying. Great. I would read that out at the beginning of a one-shot. Oh. Also, yeah, the heart knows what you want. The heart, it's almost like a play on the heart knows what the heart wants, right? The heart knows what you want. Oh, grim, grim, grim. So there you go. It's written by Grant Howard and Christopher Taylor again. Got illustrated by Felix Miol. And then we've got one of our editors, Mary Hamilton as well, one of the Rowan Rook and Descartes folks, and produced by Mary Hamilton again. They're fantastic. If you ever need to ask them for stuff on like shipping or something, because they pretty much they do all of the logistics for the Kickstarters and stuff. So yeah, this Quickstart came out a little bit earlier than the Spire Quickstart that we looked at. So it's about a year earlier, 2020 as well. So good to know. Contents. All right, so what is Heart? The world of Heart. We'll cover that. We'll have a quick look at the rules again to see if there's anything different. Possibly there is, possibly not. I can see there's healing there, so maybe that's to do with the resistances again. So it uses the same system. Running the game, and then at the end we have Drowned, which is their scenario, I think. Yes, we've got 5 characters there as well. Very cool. Oh wow, look at this image. Oh, it's so much deeper. It's so much bigger than Spire. Oh wow, that's gorgeous. So what a great, and the color of red, I mean, I'm sure it must look incredible on a book as well, but seeing it on the on a screen is pretty good. Sorry. Basilica is a sheep with a very particular kink. Thank you, Kevin. Mal Uric. Okay. The heart wants what it wants, and that is you and your bloody beaten soul. Go. All right. Introduction. This quick start pack is designed to get your first game of Heart up and running as straightforwardly as possible. Includes everything you need to play for a short campaign, roughly 3 sessions of play, or about 9 hours depending on your group, including the core rules for the game, 5 pre-generated characters to suit different types of play, locations and landmarks for your adventure, and lots of advice for the game's master too. If you'd like to find out more about the characters in Drowned, so that's the quick start scenario, go to page 38. If you want to get your head around the rules, start on page 10. If you're keen to dive into the settings, start on page 8, that's what we'll do. And then, so that's quite good. Yeah, so you're finding out the different sections where you need to go as well, even though we just had a contents page. It's alright, it's conversational, right? If you want to know how to run a great game of Heart, go to 36. If you'd like to know it all, just read on from here. So what isn't in the quick start? This is always quite important. Full rules for character creation. Yep, that makes sense. And advancement all the way to the devastating zenith abilities that inevitably doom your character. Okay. Rules for mapping and exploring Heart. So these aren't in this quick start either. A huge list of dangerous and pitiable adversaries to make your life in the city beneath even more difficult. Details on the geography of the Heart and landmarks and the delves that populate it, and the people who have chosen for some reason to live there. An expanded list of Fallout results, allowing the GM to really personalise what is happening when the player messes up. Great. I'm a big fan of giving more stuff for the GM to use. So we've got all the way from D4 to D12, so those are the dice we're using. These dice are arranged in size order, and in some situations and conditions may mean you roll the larger or smaller dice than the base one for your action. When a rule tells you to move up or down a step or dice size, go up and down this list. So if you're already in D4, you can't roll anything smaller. If you're rolling a D12, you can't roll anything higher. Also, it is a different game mechanic then. than the resistance on the d10s. Okay, so we'll definitely have to look into it. A single roll can include several dice. When we're talking about a number of dice roll for a single action, we call this the dice pool. Fine. We use masculine, feminine, and non-gender pronouns throughout this game. Thank you, appreciate that. Dice, player, etc. Yes, so it's some more terminology there. Great. So what is hard? Yes, tell us all about it. Ooh, she says, completely destroying this whole book. Heart is a game about damnation, redemption, survival, and obsession set in Heart, the nightmare, unreal labyrinth that pulses and writhes beneath the city of Spire. It is also a game about body horror, walls made of breathing meat, and exploring a possibly, I'm going to say evil, I'm not going to attempt that word, possibly evil parasitic dimension. It is also a game about dungeon crawling at the base of it. We want to take the classic story of descending into a dangerous underworld and see what twists we can put on it. Oh, cool. The Heart is a realm of infinite possibility that reforms itself anew with each generation that explores it. It can contain almost anything you can imagine. Your heart, the one that you create with the rest of your gaming group, will be distinct from every other. There is no map to constrain you save. Oh, to constrain you save. Sorry, words. There is no map to constrain you, save the ones you make yourselves. As delvers venture through the city beneath, the games master forms it around them in some into something great and terrifying and personal. I love that. You will not be playing normal people. Your characters are strange, broken people obsessed with finding something. Freedom, redemption, truth, impossible magics, excitement, and have sheltered together for companionship. In the endless passageways of the Heart, they can find it, at the cost of their sanity or preconceived notions of reality or their flesh and blood, or whatever they have left in them that made them into a person rather than a beast. Whoa, very cool. Playing the Heart takes the form of a conversation between the players and Game Master. Game Master describes the world, players describe the actions, and the Game Master reacts, and so on, yes. For most of the game, you won't be using the rules and mechanics at all. However, when a player character makes an action that's risky, dangerous, or important, or the Game Master thinks it would be interesting to see them struggle, you will use the dice to see if they succeed or fail. Yeah, all good. So when a character... Oh, so it is a d10 still. When your character performs an action, the Game Master asks for a roll. You'll roll at least one d10 dice, a d10. The number of dice you roll depends on whether you have a skill you can apply to the action or a domain that applies. Okay, so it is the same system, sorry. Essentially, whether your character has the background knowledge, they would need to give them a boost. You can also add a dice if you have mastery over the action, skill, or domain, by which you means you're good at this specific thing. By default, you always roll one dice, but in some situations you might be rolling as many as 4. The higher the result, the better chance your character succeeds, and the less stress they risk taking as a result of attempting the action. Stress is bad, as it represents all kinds of minor negative effects on your character. The more stress you accrue, the more chances you have of accumulating it to something serious. In Heart, this is called fallout. Luckily, there's lots of different ways of removing stress before this happens, but more often than not, you will find yourself choosing between your own safety and the success of the exposition. Good writing here. Well done, chaps. What kind of stories is Heart built for? So Heart is a horror game. It focuses on body horror, which is the fear of your body being changed by foreign entities against your will. Existential horror, which is the fear of your deeply held convictions proving to be false. Monster horror, which features all kinds of horrible creatures. And violent horror, where there are gruesome consequences for engaging in combat. It's not all horror though, there's wonder too, as the city beneath reveals strangeness to the delvers as they make their way through it. There's camaraderie and togetherness, there's adventure and excitement, there's a sense of establishing order over chaos. But at the root of it, this is a game about upsetting things. Of unstable people going into this parasite reality in search of answers they will probably not find. It is tragic and ironic and fun in a gallows humour sort of way. Okay, great, good to know. Character death is not only a possibility, but it is a likelihood as you amass injuries and misfortunes. The end will come for your character. It is your job as a player to make exciting choices, push your character into dangerous situations, and do your level best to have a good death. Those are your 3 principles, essentially. Although the subject matter of Heart is often grim and gruesome, the game itself isn't and shouldn't be upsetting to play. People run and play horror games for all sorts of reasons. For fun, to explore subjects and experiences they wouldn't have in real life, to bond and tell engaging stories about people. Running Heart is not about grossing people out or pushing them out of their comfort zone for no reason. It's about finding stories that meet those needs for your players, creating an environment that feels safe and supportive in which to explore the inhuman and horrific themes, and pacing the game so your players have fun. Great. What a great way of describing that as well. Again, I would put it into that, we talked about it yesterday, that idea of cats, which came up with Jason Cordova. I'm sure with other things, well, that idea of having a script of concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. And so maybe reading this aloud for the tone bit would be good. Lines and veils, we don't need to go into that a little bit because we've discovered it before. But again, good. I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad it's early on as well. That's the thing with Spire, it's quite late on, so it's nice to see it up in front as well. There's a wide variety of online safety tools. Yeah, so the World of Heart, let's look at this. Underneath the mile-high crumbling city of Spire lies the Heart, an undercity, a cursed labyrinth where reality comes unpinned at the seams, and a parasitic dimension encroaches on the surface world through meat and stone and teeth. It is a realm built and rebuilt on the ruins of civilizations that have attempted to tame it, or even understand it, and failed. Temples to dead gods rot in lightless caverns. City streets built by an unknown hand crisscross settlements in nonsensical patterns. Great rusted machines, the purpose of which is long forgotten, rumble and scrape in the darkness. There is the Heart, the greater Heart, the city beneath, and the Heart itself. The Heart itself is the core of the place, and it's, oh my word, what is that word? It coruscates with raw quintessence, unallied, alloy, with potential. Gosh, I didn't think I'd be challenged by so many pronunciations today. This is definitely of me, not the game, obviously. With which it yearns to remake the world. It siphons dreams and fears from those who step into its domain, and warps the city beneath to suit them better suit them. The closer one gets to the Heart itself, the less sense anyone makes. The great forests beneath the city, beneath the earth, towering and creaking over the heads of cold-eyed hunters that grow without ever seeing the sun. There are lakes of ash where fisherfolk sit on stilted-legged platforms and hunt with harpoons for the creatures that swim through the dust sea beneath them. There are alien skies with uncanny constellations, gods and titans imprisoned in cursed caves, intelligences from the darkness between the stars, doorways to heaven and hell, and any subsidiary dimension that you care to imagine. The city of Spire is the jewel in the crown of the Aelfir, or High Elf Empire. After a bloody siege 2 centuries prior, the Dark Elf, or Drow rulers of the city, capitulated and handed over control to the invaders. Since then, the Aelfir has used human mercenaries and indentured Drow to fight against the gnolls in the land to the south and expanded their influence. You can learn more about Spire and the Drow plot to overthrow the Aelfir government in Spire. The Heart is not an empty place. There are people here, many of whom who have descended from those who lived in the Undercity before the Mission incident, where engineers pierced the Heart itself in an attempt to power a citywide transport network, made everything much less stable than it was before. The settlement of... Oh, you said this earlier. Duh. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to make it about Cats the movie with its body horror. God, no. Could you imagine? That would be terrifying. So I'm going to read your pronunciation. Derelictus. So the settlement of Derelictus, also known as the City Between, functions as a staging post for delvers who gather here in the run-down bars and make plans. The Temple of the Moon beneath stands as a testament to the endurance of the Drow of the Spire, who, when their state religion was outlawed by the Aelfir, brought their most sacred site brick by brick to the heart and rebuilt it away from prying eyes. The Hounds, a renegade military regiment, functions as a sort of informal mercenary police. Oh god. Illicit hallucinogenic fungus farms sit along sects devoted to black magic, demonology, forbidden gods, and weird philosophies. But it is also dangerous too. There are creatures and people that have been marked by the power of the place and have changed, sometimes beyond recognition. Foxes with 7 legs of spindled bone. No thank you. Swarms of rats that whisper secrets from books they have eaten. Oh, cool. Men who have eaten flesh from the red, wet walls of the heart are now slavishly devoted to securing more meat for their blind idiot masters. Alright, sorry, who does that? Who goes, this wall seems to be made of meat and it's wet and it seems to be breathing and convulsing. I'm gonna eat that. It's not like the wallpaper from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. It's grim. Ugh. Be careful. Pack your supplies well. Practice your aim. Learn the strengths and weaknesses of your companions. Listen to the world around you and intuit the changing state of the city beneath. But above all, remember why you chose to come down here, and let that obsession burn within you like a lantern lighting your way. Oh, that's a great word. The people of Spire. Let me zoom out a little bit. See. Oh, cool. Look at these. Oh, beautiful. It feels very much like the artwork. If folks here have played Darkest Dungeon at all, or Darkest Dungeon 2, obviously that's come out recently, a similar sort of vibe for the art style. And I really love it. Also, Darkest Dungeon is great. I should get back into playing it. People of Heart. Delvers are generally one of 4 ancestries. Although different people of the world are at one another's throats, in Spire, the Heart is a great leveller in the social and racial terms, as it erodes away many of the privileges of infrastructure and power that the oppressors lay on to maintain control of the oppressed. It is not uncommon to see folk from different ancestries within the same adventuring party. Oh, very cool. So first of all, we have Drow. There are more Drow than any other type of person in the city beneath. Spire is predominantly made up of Dark Elves, and the Undercity contains entrances to the tunnels to their lands in the west. They are largely monochrome, having black, white, or grey skin, and have a slight tall build when compared to humans. Humans in Heart. Most humans you will meet will come from the Eastern Kingdoms, a scattered series of principalities ruled over a vagabond wanderer king. They have a reputation for unearthing ancient technology from the cursed archaeologies on which their homelands are built and make their own copies. They've managed to retro-engineer the gun from a few thousand years ago, and warfare hasn't been the same since. Then Aelfir, high elves who have augmented their bodies with magic and implants to look more beautiful, more graceful, and more perfect. Oh god, plastic surgery, much, huh? The Aelfir in the city above, the ruling class, wear masks to hide their faces from their inferiors. In the city beneath, only the traditionalists wear them. Any Aelfir in Heart is probably exiled from polite society. And then we have gnolls, hyena-headed people from the Southlands who have a reliance on captured spirits, and mechanical demonology to maintain the control of their desert empire. As the Aelfir are at war with them, they aren't permitted within the city limits of Spire. Many gnolls in that area are driven into the Undercity thanks to this ruling. Very cool. Hallucinogenic. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Hallucinogenic. Who eats war meat? Just the poor unfortunate souls, just like your character. Yeah, but I don't know. I think you'd have to be incredibly desperate, I think. But which makes sense because you're in this place. The art style reminds me of the Hellboy comic. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, Kevin. I absolutely see that. Okay. So, let's look at the differences. So we've got resistances. Uses the resistance system, which focuses on what the character has to lose and what is at stake in every conflict. In this game, there are 5 resistances. Your character can take stress to any of them based on what's happening in the story. So we have blood, Echo, which is a twisting of the body and mind by the unreal energies of the heart. Mind, which we've talked about. Fortune and supplies. So it's a little bit different to it's a little bit different to what we saw in Spire. Sorry, I don't know why I clicked onto that. I didn't need to see it. Your character class, calling, equipment, and abilities might provide you with protection, which can reduce the amount of stress you take. So those temporary boxes. And actually, I do have a character sheet here of hearts. So there you go. They got them up here. And so it's protection. So those are the temporary boxes that could be used on that as well. So let's zoom out a little bit. Quite a straightforward character sheet, isn't it? Very good. Class and callings. Each player in Heart is made up of a class and a calling. Your class details your background, aptitudes, and party role. It's the reason why you haven't died down here just yet. There are 9 classes in the final game, although we only use 5 of them in the Quickstart edition, which are the Cleaver. It's a shape-shifting hunter who consumes the flesh of their prey, or anything that they can get on their hands on, really, to gain power. The Deep Apiarists? As the hive, bees and stuff, right? Occultists who have given up their bodies to the hive, and otherworldly intelligence manifest as thousands of tiny crystal bees. They see the heart as anathema, and seek to keep it in check. Then we have Deadwalker. A Deadwalker has stared into the face of death and come out triumphant, and they're accompanied by a spectre of their demise. They use the half-dead spirit to break into various afterlives using the thin reality of the city beneath. Heretic, a devotee of the moon beneath, a luminous and fecund goddess that grants them the ability to use strange miracles. Hound is the mercenary police officer shackled by the cursed origins of the regiment. Oh god, how do you say that? Incarnadine, a cleric of goddess of debt, and at the end of their luck, a string of deals that saw their soul claimed by their mistress. Junk Mage, hooked on an unnatural power siphoned off extra-dimensional entities, these wizards live a precarious existence in search of the next hit. Vermisian Knight, an armoured traveller along a cursed train network, the Vermisian, with experimental technology inside knowledge of the system's inner workings. And finally we have a Witch, carriers of a blood disease that grants them the ability to cast visceral magics. Their sorcery hides their true form, flickering, hungry zoetrope horrors. Cool. Oh, thank you. I was going to say, I'll finish my sentence and then I'll look back to see what Kevin's put as a pronunciation. Anathema. Cool. Thank you. Appreciate this. Your calling is the reason why you chose to come to Heart in the first place, and what keeps you down here when any sensible person would have fled long ago. The majority of a character's calling is made up of beats, events, challenges, goals, and situations that, when a character experiences them, allows advancement and increase to power. There are 5 callings available. We have Adventure, we have Board of Life on the surface. You seek a knife-edge life of danger and excitement where laws, both social and scientific, no longer apply. Heart Song, years of mysterious dreams where a red, wet heaven glistens beneath you. Years of mysterious dreams where a red, wet heaven glistens beneath you have led you to the cursed labyrinth of the city beneath in search of greater truths. Enlightenment, you want to achieve something impossible. You know that the heart holds fragments of knowledge that you need to pull off. Forced, you don't want to be in Heart, but your masters are blackmailing you or coercing you into it. You follow their orders as best you can. And impertinent, you're part of an order. You let them down and people paid the price for it. You now try to make amends for your self-sacrifice. Nice. So they've got all lots of different examples of sort of backgrounds and stuff. Cool. Skills and domains, we've kind of covered this a little bit, so we'll just quickly have a look. So skills, compel, delve, discern, endure, evade, hunt, kill, mend, sneak. So there's some of them are similar to that to the Spire, but some of them are different as well. And yeah, you've got them all here on this side as well. So how many have we got? We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Is that right? Have I done that right? 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So you've got 9 different skills. And then your domains, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8. So 8 domains. Cool. Good to know. So let's have a bit more detail on the domains. I think those might need more of an explanation. So cursed is actively harmful locations, places touched by the heart. Desolate, wastelands and abandoned towns. Haven, settlements where people live, work, and form communities. Occult, hidden knowledge and black magic. Religion, gods and things worshipped like gods. Okay, cool. Technology, machines, buildings, and devices. Warren, cramped and dense corridors. And wild, wilderness, vegetation, and animals. Very cool. So yeah, so those are the same sort of base things. Looking at skills, looking at domains, just slightly different flavors for them, for the setting, which is great. And then knack, we've already talked about this, but if you gain a proficiency with a skill or domain a second time, that means that you can roll it with mastery. Cool. Callings. Your calling is a reason for venturing into the nightmare undercity. Well, let me zoom in a little bit. The obsession that keeps you pushing deeper into the heart in search of something intently valuable to you. In this quick start edition, each of the characters comes with a calling already selected. Great. We're not going to look at character advancement, although it's nice to see it is in here. And then success and failure. When your character performs an important or difficult action, the games master will ask you to roll to see if you succeed. You need to do 5 things in order. First, establish the stakes for the roll. What do you have to lose, if anything? Next, work out if your character's skills and abilities apply to the action, and establish how much dice you're rolling. That tells you the size of your dice pool, your d10s. Then roll your dice, and if it's a difficult action, remove dice according to the difficulty rules. Work out whether you've succeeded and what happens next as a result by consulting the highest result rolled on your dice. If necessary, mark stress and roll for fallout. If you failed or succeeded at a cost, there will be some negative effects for your character that the GM will help you resolve. Remember, all actions in Heart use the same basic mechanics, not just combat, but persuasion, infiltration, exploration, and everything else your character might want to do. There are more details on how to deal with combat and exploration and healing later on, but the core rules will be the same every time you roll. Great. Good. And look, oh, there we go. Another great graphic. Again, I think I would just print this out to hand to players, or give them the copy of this particular page to help them look at stuff. Oh, and you got a bit more about the stress there as well. Resolve stress and fallout. No stress. Stress of 6 or less. Oh, it's slightly different, the stress. It's a D12, not a D10. Let's look at this. Sorry, look at it. I'm sure it'll come into it in a second, but I wanted to see. It's on a 6 or more, so 6 or more here, inflict stress. On a 7 or less, resolve the stress and fallout. So you roll a d12, compare it to the player's total stress. If it's above, no stress is stuff it, but if it's underneath, stress and 6 or less, the character takes a minor fallout and clears all stresses in the associated resistance. Stress and 7 or more takes major fallout and clears all stresses. Oh, interesting. You clear stresses. Yes, of course, that's what happened in Spire. I remember now. So, we don't need to do this dice pool stuff. That seems very straightforward. I want to work out the that stress mechanic as well. So, take the highest result and use it to work out what it is. So, yeah, critical failure, yep, take double stress, etc., etc. If you're rolling a d10 because of difficulty, yeah, all that sort of thing. Difficult actions. Oh, wow. Difficult actions is 1 to 9 is failure, so take stress. Success at a cost, take 10. Only if you get 10. Damn, that's brutal. Those are difficult actions. If you're trying to do some... No. Sometimes you're just rolling to avoid taking harm. Yes. Now, here we go. That's what I wanted to look at. Mark stress and resolve fallout. When you act and something goes wrong, when you roll a 7 or less as your highest result, or you're using the different difficult actions table, so yeah, that one before it says like 1 to 9, you will mark stress to one of your resistances. There are 5 kinds of resistances, which we've sort of gone over: blood, echo, mind, fortune, and supplies. Normally, you've established what kind of stress is at risk during phase 1, establishing the stakes. Here we go. This is sometimes determined by the GM, and in cases we've listed the specific values as a starting point in this guide. The lowest stress a situation can inflict is a D4, and the highest is a D12. Here's some examples. We've got the protection as well, so equipment and abilities can confer a resistant protection. When you mark a stress to resistance, reduce the total stress by taking the value of the protection. Protection can completely negate stress loss. In this case, do not roll for Fallout, as no stress has been added to the character. Fallout results can render a character's protection useless, lost, or in need of repair. So taking Fallout. So each time your character takes stress, the GM will check for Fallout to see if there's any kind of ongoing or serious effect in play. The GM will roll a d12 and compare it to the results of the total stress marked against the character's resistances. If the result of a d12 is equal to or lower, the character will suffer Fallout, so the same thing as before. And then the level of Fallout depends on the number rolled on the d12. So a 1 to 6 is minor, and a 7 to 12 is major. Oh, interesting. So compared to before, when it talked about the players depending on their level of stress. So in Spire, it was like if you've only got, if we've rolled and it's underneath the stress, and if your players have got 2 to 3 stress, that was a minor, right? It was minor, major, and then severe. So here is slightly different. It's the number you've rolled, the GM has rolled on that d12. Okay. With the GM, work out what happens based on the type of stress triggered. Usually that's the resistance type that has the most stress marks against it. If there is a mix or it's not clear, go whatever sounds most interesting. You can choose a Fallout from the list starting on page 18, which is in 2 pages' time, or make up your own. If you want, you can choose to combine 2 minor Fallouts into a single major Fallout. This could be especially appropriate if they are of the same resistance. The original minor Fallout is removed and then replaced with the new major one. 2 major Fallouts can be combined into a critical Fallout in the same way, but only if you do so. Critical Fallouts signal the end of your character in one way or another. Death or madness or destitution or any number of ignoble ends. Having multiple major Fallouts at the same time isn't fun for your character, but it's perfectly fine to choose to play them out rather than writing the character out of the game. Character death is always a choice. Cool. Let's look at healing then. So there are different types of healing in Heart. Removing stress allows you to prevent things from getting worse for your character, or if you're removing stress due to taking Fallout, it lets you crystallize your problems from the abstract into the concrete. Healing ongoing Fallout lets you deal with the long-term effects of delving into Heart without removing your character from play. So removing stress. There are several ways you can remove stress from your character. Certain characters' abilities. Resting at a landmark that allows you to access their haunts and refresh. When you contribute a resort to a haunt, you can remove stress equal to the resource's die size. Roll it and subtract that amount. The die size next to the haunt indicates the highest amount of stress they can remove, even if they have more valuable resources to trade. Suffering Fallout also removes the stress from your character, although things definitely got a lot worse for your character. Their misfortune shifts from the abstract, so that's stress, to the concrete, which is Fallout. When you take a minor Fallout, remove all the stress from the resistance associated from it, rather than before in Spire it was like a D3 or a D6, etc., right? And then if you take a major or critical Fallout, then remove all the stress from your resistances. But I guess if you've got a critical Fallout, then it's kind of the end for you anyway. Players can attempt to remove blood, mind, or supply stress from each other using the appropriate skills and equipment. See immediately below for details. So the main difference between stress and Fallout is that Fallout has negative mechanical effects and stress doesn't. Fallout comes with its own description, but stress is slightly more nebulous because it's strictly a fictional concern. To that end, the GM and players should work together to define what the stress means to the character. Whatever you and your group decide on is fine, but remember, you can get descriptive as you like. Until someone receives a Fallout, there's no mechanical feedback. That's really interesting. I quite like that, actually, encouraging descriptions of stuff. So far, for every 3 words you have struggled with, I've only written one out for you. You're doing great. That's very kind of you, Kevin. If it's your first time to one of my streams, I do struggle with a lot of my pronunciation. I'm a big fan. I would love to see if we were doing like a D&D book in future. They never put pronunciation guides for any of their character names, and it's so frustrating when you're trying to learn it up. So I very much appreciate it. The authors picked up a lot of old words for some descriptions, which really helps with the flavour of the game. I completely agree. I think, Grant and Chris have done a cracking job on like getting that the oldness and the ancientness around it, and that sort of otherworldliness as well. It's really, really cool. Healing player characters. When attempting to remove stress, the active character makes a check using the Mend skill in the domain most relevant to the injury or loss or location in which it took place. So, for example, Wild for Snakebite, Haven for Gunshot, Desolate for Exhaustion, Occult for Mind-Addling Hex. On a failure or partial success, they mark stress to their supplies. If successful, removes a d4 of stress, and the characters can increase this amount with a suitable equipment. There we go. We won't go into this per se. Removing ongoing fallout. So ongoing fallout usually can't be removed by player characters without the use of special abilities. There are serious problems that can't be solved in the chaos and tumult of a delve, but they need space, time, and relative calm to put them right. The easiest way to remove ongoing fallout is to access a haunt with appropriate resistance tag and pay for their service by spending resources. It will cost a d6 resource to remove minor fallout and a d8 resource to downgrade a major fallout to a minor fallout. Oh, that's really good. I like that. That you don't get rid of them, that you just downgrade it. So it's like, this is a problem for laterers. Critical fallout usually spells the death of a character, but should they be dragged to Haven quickly enough, you can downgrade the fallout to a major for a d8 of resources. Finally, the GM might decide to remove fallout because it makes sense in the fiction. For example, the darkness supplies fallout puts the player characters at a disadvantage when exploring because they are low on lantern fuel. If a player suffering from this fallout finds a replacement torch as they explore, the GM could choose to remove the fallout and temporarily suppress its effects. This is handled on a case-by-case basis and should be discussed with the players as and when it arrives. Fallout is divided into two broad categories: immediate and ongoing. Immediate fallout generally triggers a scene or event where a player character is suffering the fallout is at a disadvantage. They're attacked, for example, or become lost, or someone's angry at them and confronts them. Oh, I'm always at immediate fallout. There is no way of avoiding or working around the situation. Things are bad right now and need to be addressed, although the GM might wait to trigger an event at a more dramatically appropriate time. Yep, sounds good. Ongoing fallout sticks to the character until it is removed and makes certain actions more likely to go wrong. They don't usually have an associated scene or event, and there's generally a way of mitigating the problem. A character for a broken leg, for example, could opt to cover the other characters with a rifle from a good vantage point, so their lack of mobility won't be a problem. You can remove ongoing fallout from characters in a few different ways, and there's more details how to do this on page 8. On page 18. We're on page 18. It's talking about this top at this section before it. And here's some examples of, and it's split up as well into the resistances as well. That's quite good. I like that. Strange appetite. Well, that goes back to eating the walls, doesn't it? Strange appetite as a minor fallout for your echo. You crave unusual, taboo things rather than a good, honest meat and drink. Rusted metal, living creatures, vermin. What is that word? Effluvia? It's a great word. Don't know what it means at all. Used clothing, pets, etc. Next time you visit a haven and attempt to refresh blood or mind, you must seek out this weirdness and indulge it, otherwise you'll be unable to refresh. Once you sort out the weirdness, remove this fallout. This fallout can be upgraded into dark cravings ongoing. That's really cool. I like it that, if there's a way to upgrade it. So before we had that like weird and then permanent weird, which was like sort of minor and major fallout that's sort of related. Anything like that goes, okay, this is going to get really serious. Oh, that is grim though. Fortune. The hard way. You lead the party into danger. The next obstacle the group attempts to overcome is dangerous. They can reduce it to risky or even standard with a decent plan. And that's, so all these are immediate fallouts. Oh, I see. Yeah, so minor fallouts, and then it's like immediate and ongoing. Yes, I get it now. Very good. And it's major fallouts as well. Well, let's don't look at too much again. I'm just aware of time. Hello everyone. Brian says, player and GM both collaborating to define what stress means is excellent. Yeah, 100% agree. I'm always a big fan of being able to collaborate on stuff, and like something on this about where your path as your character's going seems really cool. Agreed. Effluver. Organic runoff like slime and ooze. Grim. I love it. Let's go ahead. Critical fallout. Critical fallout spells the end of your character. They might die, they might not, but they retire from the game. It's possible that they might return as an NPC or changed beyond recognition in future. But for now, it's time to make a new character. Great. Yeah, chosen. That's that one from before, isn't it? You pass out and awaken in a half dreamlike state before the heart. Oh no. You've been blessed by its power. You return to life seemingly unharmed. A miracle! And within a session or two, your transformation into an angel, a nightmare creature of blistering unreality and scintillating ribbons of wet flesh, is complete. You're not dead, but then again, you can't die now. You retire as a character player. You retire as a player character. Oh, that's grim. And I definitely would describe it as like a biblically accurate angel as well. Oh. Cool though. I you know what, I'm a massive fan of having stuff like this so you can refer it as a GM, and so you're not having to make stuff up on the fly. I've talked about this before, that I sometimes really struggle when it's like a mixed success and there's like some bad consequence happen, and I go, oh, I don't know, because sometimes it's just very hard to improvise for a specific thing that will make an impact. So stuff like this, I absolutely, yeah, massive fan of. It's coming to the half past. I'm going to give it another 5-10 minutes just to go through this last bit, because I know it was going to come on to the scenario in a second, but I do want to see what these exploration rules are, because obviously it is procedurally generated, and then we will have to end it there. The heart is a rift between realities where centuries of black magic runoff from the undercity have mixed in with the roiling, unnatural energies beneath and twisted and warped the space into an almost unrecognizable state. When you step into the heart, it will reform yourself around you. You will scar it into being, and the longer you stay in one place or retread the same routes, the more stable it will become. Okay. The heart is divided into tiers that correspond with the proximity of locations to the heart itself. That is to the epicenter of unreality that roils beneath the spire. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but this idea of unreality and like the closer you get to it, the more unreal and sort of like surreal it is. It reminds me of Idris by Vagrant Workshop. It's the opposite way around, this idea of this city that was created by Idris, the goddess Idris, who's disappeared. And the closer to the centre is more stable, but the further out you go, the more surreal and things are fictional, so to speak. So that's what it just reminds me of. It's just the opposite way round in terms of the setting. So we have Tier 0, the city above. It's barely touched by the heart. And other examples as well. Tier 1, running from the edge of Derelictus and the city between into the depths of the Undercity. There are some people here, some of them normal, most of them weird, but they're people. And Tier 2, the weirdness creeps in and changes things. There's still recognisable landmarks, but they shift and change locations without warning. Monsters prowl the dark and empty spaces, and people are few and far between. There are havens, but they're unsettling and strange. In the full book, there are details for Tiers 3 and 4, rogue landmarks that move on their own. Oh, creepy. And fractures, parasitic realities that use the metaphysical weirdness of the heart to burst through into the world. Cool. I like though that's quite a lot to go on, and presumably this is all covered in that scenario as well. These first 3 tiers, and then these extra ones that you can look into. Landmarks. So some of the locations and areas are infamous enough to become landmarks. These are used for navigation through the heart, in as much as one can navigate it. Whilst the precise location of landmarks shifts, the nature of them stays the same. You can generally find them if you're on the same tier as them and you're a skilled tracker. The journey to the heart a journey through the heart takes place between 2 landmarks. If the landmarks are connected by a road or path, see the connections on page 26. If there's no established connection, however, the players will have to forge their own route through the unstable and shifting terrain of the heart. See the exploring section on page 24. The drowned adventure attached to this quick start, all journeys are considered to be exploration due to the unstable nature of the city beneath after the events in the Divesi? Who knows? Delves. Travelling on a route between 2 unconnected landmarks or from one landmark into an unknown territory is a delve. They are dangerous and uncertain, and travellers must rely on their wits, bravery and equipment to survive, let alone get to where they're heading. They're broken down into certain parts, so the name, description of the area, domains that are commonly associated with the journey, stress, the default dice size, or stress inflicted on characters when they fail. When? Or partially succeed whilst on the journey, when they slip and fall and begin to drown and burn supplies and so on. The larger the dice, the more dangerous the delve is. Resistance, the amount of stress the player characters must collectively inflict on the journey before it's completed. Oh, cool. Oh, that's quite good. So yeah, so it's almost like a target number, and it's the number of successes you have, which then includes stress. Ah, okay. Events that might typically happen, and the connection. If the delve isn't a stable connection, what challenges await those who would seek it to establish one? Usually described as a dangerous optional adversary of some kind of. Usually described as a dangerous optional adversary of some kind, or an arduous task that adds DX value to the delve's resistance if attempted. And then, for example, see the Drowned Adventure. As mentioned above, each delve has a resistance. The resistance acts like a function of equivalent a statistic for an adversary. Successful actions on this part of the players will reduce it, and once it hits 0, the journey is complete. As with any situation, it is up to the GM to provide interesting options and react to the player choices when they seek out solutions to problems. I love this idea of treating the journey like a fight, like a enemy, because that's what you are. You're fighting against the elements to get to this thing, to get to this landmark, to get to point B. So I really like that. So that you treat it as like the environment is fighting against you, right? Roll the appropriate combination of skill, domain, as they would with any other action. On a success or partial success, they inflict a D4 of stress by default on the delve. Equipment and abilities can increase this number or change the way in which it's calculated. A failure or partial success will inflict stress on the character. This doesn't indicate that they are lost, stranded, or in trouble. That's covered by fortune resistance. Instead, the failure on the delve indicates that the party has consumed more supplies than they would like, taking the long way round, or run the risk of attracting attention from adversaries. Boons and Banes. Aside from putting one foot in front of the other, characters might perform actions that make the journey easier whilst on the delve, or make things harder for themselves. For example, if a clutch of pitchkin have built a tarry flammable nest in the only sensible path, the player characters might decide to take them on in a fight to clear a route through. A fight isn't considered to be part of the delve itself. Instead, if the pitchkin are defeated, it functions as a boon. If players earn a boon, subtract a D4 from D8, a D4 from D12 points from the delve's resistance. The D4 for minor disadvantages, and a D12. Oh, I see. D4 to D12 as on a scale. I see. D4 for minor advantages and D12 for really clever gambits. Great. That's quite cool. Similarly, if the party decides to rest for an extended period, or do something else that runs the risk of extending the delve, this functions as a bane. If they incur a bane, add a D4 to D12 points to the delve's resistance. D4 for quick rests or minor issues, all the way up for D12 for really serious problems. Very good. You can, and indeed should, adapt the rules for presenting delves and exploring to represent other challenges that can't be resolved with a single dice roll. The defense of a landmark against raiders, for example, or consecrating a shrine against dark powers. We've included an example of this at the end of the adventure that makes up the last part of this quick start. Okay. Ooh, there's stuff for abandoning delves and connections. I'm going to quickly look at combat, because I feel that's going to be quite important. So let's see if we can cover that in the next 5 minutes, which I appreciate it's not enough time. As with the rest of the game, combat is handled with a conversation between the players and the GM and uses normal rules for success and failures as listed on page 15. Players will describe their actions, whether they be movement, attacks, special abilities, or fleeing in terror. The GM will then call for specific roles and actions taken during combat, always considered standard difficulty as such, and always rolled for it. The default role in combat uses the kill skill and whatever domain the fight is taking place in. So, for example, a fight on the top of acres of an abandoned high-rise building would use kill plus desolate. Other skills commonly used in combat are hunt to catch fleeing targets, evade, compel, mend, discern, sneak, endure, and So those are all using all ICs, giving you a way to use these other sort of skills in a fight that's not necessarily fighting. Initiative. Heart doesn't do rounds or turns to measure time in combat like the rest of the game. Players describe their character actions and the GM reacts to those actions. Once the dice has been rolled, the outcome is resolved, and the player usually passes to another player. However, there's no mechanical limit how many times a player can act before others do. If it makes narrative sense for a character to act twice in a row, such as leaping onto the back of a heart's blood monster and then trying to stab it to death, then they can make one roll after another. Remember, every dice roll comes with a chance of taking stress, so the more actions equals more risk. GM, your characters don't get turns of their own. You can have your characters make any action at any time, and it's up for the player characters to stop them if they don't like it. You can also push players into making reactive rolls too. Have enemies attack and trigger a kill, evade, or endurance check to defend themselves, for example. As a rough guide, try not to have your characters do more than one thing without a player also having a chance to act in between. Cool. And then there's outnumbering, the range of weapons, all good. Strengths and resistances. Okay, so that feels fairly straightforward in terms of fighting. So who's first? It can be hard to treat combat as something other than a series of turns and rounds if you've learned to do so from other role-playing games. Agreed. If you're finding it difficult to make sure everyone gets equal go in combat, you can try one of the following methods. The GM chooses who to act at any time. Starting from the player on the left of the GM, everyone takes an action in turn, going clockwise around the table. The group decides who acts first, and once that person has acted, it's their choice to who acts next. Oh, I see. These are different methods, not one similar. So yes, the GM can choose it. It can go clockwise around the table. The group decides who acts first, and once that player has acted, it's their choice. So they go around almost like doing a draft. Each player rolls a d6 and acts in number order. Once everyone has acted, roll again. Great. And then we've got equipment. Interesting. Some other things there. I'm just going to quickly look to make sure there's nothing else that catches my eye. But again, this is stuff that would make sense going to it. Buying and selling tags. We've sort of covered this with Spire, and then, oh wow, that's gorgeous. Look at the colours on these weapons and the equipment. Some example equipment, resources, non-player characters, which we don't need to go into. Oh, that's terrifying. Oh, blood. Is that Heart's Blood Beast? Way too many eyes. And then running the game. Great. I think we're going to leave it there. Unfortunately, it's a shame we didn't get through the whole of Heart. But yeah, obviously there is some similarities to Spire as well. But oh, what a great little system. I think, again, I need to get my head around a little bit more. I think the base mechanic for both Spire and Heart is really straightforward, and there's definitely a lot in terms of juicy sort of lore and sort of settings. The world itself that Grant and Chris have sort of put together for both Spire and Heart. So yeah, I would highly recommend checking them out. And yeah, both these quick starts are free to get on Rowan Rook and Descartes and on Drive-Thru RPG. Yeah, the art in this book is great. Yeah, I completely agree. So I'm just going to put the links to them both. I appreciate I didn't put the link to Heart. I'll do that now as well. So please feel free to check out both of these if you've not done so already. I think, yeah, I'm going to have to... I've got the Heart book, so I'm going to have to check that out before the stream as well in November to make sure I get the character right. But yeah, I think overall, really nice, quick way of doing it. You can tell there's obviously differences between them both. Which one would I rather play? I think for me, because I do prefer my horror games. I do like Heart initially, but I like Spire. Feels very different to anything I would play normally, so I definitely would check that out at some point. But equally, I think I would definitely check out other actual players. So One Shot Pod, go check out their Spire, and I think it was someone said in the chat before. I think it was yourself, Kevin. Saying that there's not too many Heart streams or Heart actual plays. But I'm sure if they are, please feel free to link them onto the comments of this stream. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate. Ran over a little bit, and we do have another stream starting in about 50 minutes. We're going to look at Dune, the RPG, which I'm very much looking forward to. So I need to go set up for that. If you found this interesting, I very much appreciate you being here. I have a podcast, What Am I Rolling, which is a twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast. Kevin says, just remember to stay away from the war meat. I think that's just a tip for life, to be honest with you, Kevin. We do lots of different one-shot scenarios, not one-shot scenarios, we do lots of different one-shots using different systems, essentially, and just exploring them and seeing like what we like, what we don't. There's some interviews with game designers as well there. I run most of the RPGs, but also we've got some other guests coming in as well. We've just finished our Die, the role-playing game RPG, which obviously is done by Rowan Ruck and Descartes, as well as obviously Kieran Gillen as well. Highly recommend checking out if you're in an emotional space to do so. I also run the DM's Book Club, which is a weekly book club podcast about D&D lore and how we would make it better and how we would use it in any system. And we do talk about lots of other RPGs in that as well. If you're interested in knowing more and you're a Discord person, please feel free to join the Where and DMBC Discord. We talk about RPGs all the time, just sort of discussing and sharing stuff like that. It's a really lovely little community, so please feel free to do that as well. I am going to go to big screen, big face Fiona. There we go. So yeah, we've got another stream coming up. We've got another 2 streams coming up today because I didn't have much to do on the bank holiday weekend. So next we're going to do June, the quick start from June RPG from Modifius. A quick start, we're going to do that, and then later on we're going to do is Zaber's Bed and Breakfast. So very different to the ones we just discussed here, but I very much appreciate it. And yeah, maybe it was a bit too much to do 2 at the same time, but I quite, it's nice to get that full experience of like, okay, they're connected in some way. And so I can imagine actually you playing characters in Spire and then being sent down and going to Heart, and vice versa perhaps as well, just to have a different sense of it, even though you probably have to do a little bit of streamlining of your characters perhaps to go from one setting to another, only a little bit though, because the main mechanics are the same. So very, very cool. With all that out of the way, thank you so much. I really appreciate you folks being here. I really appreciate you spending time. If you wait just 15 minutes or so, I'll be back with another stream, which will be the June RPG. So now I'm going to look really randomly for, there's the end button stream. I'm going to wave awkwardly, and thank you so much for watching Too Long Didn't Read Tabletop RPGs, and we'll see you in about 15 minutes.